Good evening and welcome to our meeting tonight. For those of you who are watching from home, if you have any questions that you would like to address the board, please email us at fulton@clerk.cnyric.org. I call this meeting to order at 6:32. Would somebody move action 1.02, approve the agenda?
Move it.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. In the event of an emergency and we need to evacuate the building, we have an exit over here at door 6, or you could go out the library door, either go to the right or the left. There are doors at either side of the hallway, and please move away from the building. Would you please join us in pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public tour, we do not have anybody signed up this evening. Can I have somebody move action 1.06 to approve December 12th regular meeting minutes?
Move it. Second.
Jen? And Alan? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. For our president's report tonight, just take a look at some of the meetings that are coming up. Our Capitol conference for Lobby Day, the virtual meeting is February 2nd, and in person is February 7th. We have February's board meetings posted, as well as our Health and Safety Committee, which will be virtual this time. Is that correct, Mr. Lisi?
Correct.
Okay. And a tentative budget workshop for March 5th. We will talk about the budget workshop February 6th in Mr. Palvino's report. Does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to add or ask?
So the March 5th would be an additional one to the one we're trying to fit in February?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We will move on to Mr. Palvino and the superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening everyone and Happy New Year. Believe it or not, it's our first meeting in the new year, so Happy New Year belated. We have a number of items this month, or at this meeting, because we did not have our last meeting. Hopefully the weather cooperates the rest of the season. Our first item this evening is our GRB new courses. Mrs. Geithner and team.
Thank you. Joining me this evening will be Mr. Murray and Mrs. Florio, who will provide us an overview on some new course proposals coming from GRB. But just to start with some background, Dr. Lisi, if you could go to the next slide. As always, a reminder of our mission and vision, and using these to guide the work that we're doing, and offering our students expanded opportunities for learning at the high school level. Our new course considerations always follow our New York State standards, student input around their needs for learning and also engagement. Our team at the high school is always seeking input from potential employers and higher education institutions to see how we can best prepare our students for college and career. And then, as often as possible, seeking opportunity for some interdisciplinary applications so that students can learn multiple standards across multiple disciplines in one learning experience, to kind of connect their learning to things that are relevant and real world, as they often tell us they would like to see more of. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Murray to talk about the first two in the series, which are a fitness elective and a work keys skills preparation course.
Good evening. So the first one is a fitness elective course that we're looking to add, which was a brainchild of one of our new phys ed teachers, based on lots of feedback from students in terms of their interest in this particular topic and subject. This new phys ed teacher has also started a weightlifting club which is pretty well attended by students. And they've expressed interest in this being something that's offered year-round in phys ed class as an option. He wants to expand this to not just physical fitness in terms of personal health, but also add a component to clean and healthy eating along with it. To add that component as well, which would allow us to potentially be able to collaborate with our FCS teacher who does cooking and baking and things like that in our school as well. So there's going to be a wide range of focus in this particular course, which would count as a elective credit, but potentially also a phys ed credit, depending upon students' needs and interest in the course. Our second course is a work keys course that we're looking to add. We have curriculum through ACT. As you probably know, we've been offering the work keys exam to our students now for a few years. We have lots of students who take it. However, the curriculum for this particular exam isn't covered in any one class. Where it's covered right now is a little bit sporadic in the sense that we have our financial math students which are taking it. So they cover the financial, or they cover the math portion of it, which a lot of work keys is math, but it's really not all of the curriculum. We also have some of our business classes, which are elective classes, which will cover this content, but it's an elective scenario. So with our work keys course that we're proposing to put in there is an actual course to prepare students for success on the work keys exam, along with being prepared for working in the business world. So it's going to go beyond just the exam and give them the skills that they would need to be credentialed to be employable. So those are the two courses we're looking building wide outside of the LA, which we have much.
Do you have an estimated idea of how many kids who might be interested in it? I know you probably know how many kids are taking the tests already. Mm-hmm. So,
in terms of taking the course, we haven't thrown that out there yet because it's brand new for us and a brand new idea. Our students are actually doing relatively well. Most score, which is a score between bronze. Students can score bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Most kids score, but the idea behind this is, can we get them to score even higher?
right.
So we're going to definitely offer this to all students who are, right now we offer the exam to financial math students, alt ed, special class, business, and early college high school. So we would like to expand that to more groups of students to include really everyone. But again, even in those subgroups, if they were able to take this course as an elective and earn high school credit along with, because this is a pathway to graduation as well, we think the numbers would be pretty decent.
So without this class, it's not a pathway, or
it is a pathway. All they have to do is
pass.
all they have to do is pass the exam.
Okay.
But again, we're looking at it in terms of if we were offered this course, maybe those scores would be even higher.
Yeah.
That's what we're shooting for.
So the other point that I think we are just learning about because of the ACT, which work keys is through ACT, and the outreach they've been doing to trade and technical schools and also colleges, that some colleges are awarding credits based on the scores that students receive on work keys exams. So if a student is going into the workforce, it's a credential and also a potential graduation pathway from high school. But for some students who are college bound, it could also mean college credits as well for them.
So I have a question that might be dumb, but I thought the work keys was already a course. It's just a test?
So right now there's
just a test.
Preparation that's done with the support of Angela Ferlito through our Career Center at the high school. And it's also, again, financial math, some of our early college high school students and some students who are in other programs and courses get some of the preparation through those courses, but there's no one focused course that supports all elements of the work keys prep.
And do our kids have to pay to take the test?
That cost is covered through a combination of donations and district funding.
Okay.
So there is a cost, but
Right, but we're not
Right.
passing it on to the
Students are
like
not
an
paying the cost
SAT
of
or
that,
whatever.
correct.
Okay.
It's one of the local banks.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
we actually have opened this up, just so you're aware, to adults in the community
Oh.
as well. We have a sign-up sheet that was passed out by myself in an email and a family update for families to sign up if they're interested in taking the exam. They would foot the bill for that cost, but we're opening it up to them as well.
So when would the adults in the community take the course and?
They would schedule that with Ms. Verlito in the Career Center, so whenever she's available and depending upon interest, she would make time.
How often is the test given? Is it?
As many times as we want.
It's online, correct?
Yep. Yeah, so we don't have to schedule, it's not like a Regis exam where it's 3 times a year, we offer it as many times as we want.
Got to go back to your fitness elective.
Sure.
Is there anything in that curriculum that's going to talk about insulin resistance? There's a lot of diabetes things going on. I've been watching a lot of the news about insulin resistance and diabetes.
In terms of that type of detail, I'm not sure exactly. I know that it's covered in our health class, which every student in the high school takes.
It is.
It is. Whether it's in that class in particular, I don't know for sure. But
the subject of insulin resistance
is covered in our
in a health.
And it's also, it'll be covered in our living environment biology classes as well.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the National Career Readiness Certificate, so when did this come about, and is it something that employers are looking at to make sure you have it?
They are. We just actually had a meeting this week, Monday, regarding this within the county specific. There are not a tremendous number that are using it like automatically. Hutamaki is one. So what happens with this exam is depending upon how students score and whether they've taken the exam or not, if there's, let's say there's 50 resumes that come through and applications, if they've taken the work keys, they will go right to the top of the pile. So they'll be looked at first. So that is happening at Hutamaki. I think what I got from the workforce development group, Rachel Pierce, said that she's trying to promote that across the county more. And we had a conversation about adding this as a potential course at the high school. There are other schools who are trying to jump on. So this is a across the country exam, but here locally in the county, it's not huge yet. But I think the number she gave me was 38 businesses that have said, we will look at this as being part of what we do. She's just not sure if, like at Hutamaki, their applications go to the top of the pile or not. So she's gonna follow up on that and dig in with some of the businesses that said they would be connected with the exam.
Now, the businesses that mentor here, Hutamaki is the only one of those that is currently?
That she was aware of, that Rachel was aware of, correct.
So is that something that we can talk to those other companies about?
That was her,
as they're talking to the students here?
that was her plan for sure. She was definitely gonna bring that up.
Yeah, this originally came, we could do a presentation on it sometime. This idea came from the PTEC program, and all of the students in the PTEC were taking this exam. And so as we were listening, I felt like this is something we should be interested in, maybe get interested in. I shared that with G. Ray Bodley, high school principal, as well as Ms. Verlito with all the work we're doing with the Career Center. And it's evolved. Just yesterday, we recognized 56 students yesterday who received between a platinum and a bronze yesterday. And I believe that they're looking at possibly over 100 students to take the exam later this spring through the financial math classes. The other thing that was pointed out in the presentation yesterday was that 29 or 30 states require this exam to go out into the workforce. So it actually is giving our students access to many other states, but also as Mr. Murray has talked about, is in this state, they're trying to get this up and going across the state of New York. So once again, Fulton has kind of embraced something we saw somewhere else with PTEC, realized it was something good and positive, and as Ms. Geithner talked about, she had a slide up yesterday, if you scored at that platinum or the gold level, we're talking between 1 and 3 college credits, possibly as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So we can do an update for you, but it was great to see 56 kids yesterday get recognized at G-Ray.
And the exam itself is ever changing. So last year when students were taking it, however a student scored on it, it was only good for 5 years time. So within the last 6 months, they changed it to it's permanent. So whatever you score on that exam, which you can change your score up to a higher level anytime you want. By taking specific sections, you don't have to take the whole test again, but it's good for lifetime.
And you said this is given online?
It is.
Through the school, or just anybody can go online and put in this?
It has to be a site.
Yeah.
Or supported site.
Site.
Yeah, we work with CCC, I believe.
Yeah, and they all test for the proctor, and Miss Really will proctor an exam
Okay.
with the teacher that brings the class down to take it.
So one of the selling points of the WorkKeys exam also is a badging or credentialing examination. Is the way that they've explained it to us is if you score at the platinum level, you are a match for 99% of the employers with the skill sets you're able to demonstrate. 99% of the employers in their data bank would say that you're a high match for the skills they're looking for in an employee. So that is definitely an advantage that we want to give to our students.
One of our students, I have to add this one, we had our first perfect score. And there's a special designation for special scores. We had our first student recognized yesterday.
Scored
First
3
perfect score.
sevens,
All
which is the
sevens.
highest score in each subtest.
Every single area, yeah.
Is this test kind of set up like any of our other testing, so our students who have accommodations, do they get their accommodations for this test? This is something like we would set up for Region 3.
And it's done over a multi-day. So there's 3 separate distinguishable parts. So students are taking it over 2 or 3 days time to complete all parts of it.
Oh,
I just have a quick question that you can probably answer. It said that for these new courses, you had student input. What did you use to drive that out?
Student surveys, some formal, some informal, depending upon how they were. Like, so the fitness course was more informal. WorkKeys was spur of the moment, basically, because I was looking at test results within the last couple of weeks and thinking we should really offer a course that will help prepare them better, because I'm looking at scores that are decent, and I'm thinking, well, if we have a curriculum, why aren't we offering an elective course where they can earn credit and probably do better on the exam? So that's where that one came from. So in these 2 in particular, the informal was, again, going back to our heavy lifting club and surveys that we sent out with the SEP and our TFI, which is tiered fidelity inventory surveys. Those are randomly chosen students who, we do about 10% of the building every 5 weeks, and we ask questions about what engages them in school, are you connected to adult, things like that. And it's been coming up multiple times that students are really into the weight room and wanting to be doing that more often. So that's where that came from.
So you poll students like every 5 weeks?
Every 5 weeks.
Every 5. Is that something that we can maybe see so that, so that we know and we can help, I don't know, drive what
We have TFIs going on all of the
All
schools.
of the buildings.
Yeah,
We really use them for our culture team.
for these are awesome. These are really great new courses, and I can't help but think test scores. Like, do we have new courses to help support like regent level classes and things of that nature? So of course, these are wonderful additions, but my mind goes right there. Like Harvard, have you ever taken
I took
a survey?
Oh,
Yeah.
a survey? No, I haven't taken a survey. I thought you meant
Or
the test. I was
a test
like, yeah,
you've
don't worry,
taken?
I'm taking it.
Or you know what I mean? Like do you?
I haven't taken a survey.
Mhm.
I haven't gotten.
The TFI is random, so it's about 100, we survey about 100 students out of 1,000, which is 10%. And then we also survey staff, which is about 20 out of 100 that we have for our 10%. And again, that's every 5 weeks we survey.
And there are questions, for example, around culture, things like that. I know you were talking about one the other,
I have an adult I connect with at school.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Do you feel like you can speak up in school? Do you feel like you belong in
It's litmus
school?
tests, quick checks to see are we really making progress on some of those areas that we do on the master plan and more on the district coherent one we do 2 times a year.
Twice.
So, and those
It'd just be
principals talk
interesting to
about.
like
Yeah, we
see
could,
the data.
we could do some, I don't know if we have the depth, we could talk about some of the ways we're using the TFI process in our schools. And that we can use to that.
To the data, like what the kids are actually saying.
Or we'd be asking,
Yeah.
things that we're looking at.
It's tiered fidelity inventory. So there's a tiered fidelity inventory that's part of an annual assessment that we do on our MTSS systems around attendance and behavior and culture. And these are mini TFIs, which pull questions from those to gauge specific building goals. So if the high school sets specific goals around one particular area, for example, or any of our buildings, because they're all using these in some capacity, they're surveying random groups of people, whether it's parents or staff members or students or all three, to just take a pulse periodically on how they're progressing toward their goals.
Relatively new strategy.
For about 2 years, I would say we've been using it consistently.
Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see what the kids think. Are we meeting the goals? Like, I think that would be great to see. Thank you.
So the next group, Ms. Florio is going to join us at the podium as the English department chair. Talk about some proposed new courses in the English department. These align with the shift that we have presented to you in the past from giving the English Regents originally. It would have been in June of the junior year for a lot of students traditionally. And we have gradually, with the English department's planning, moved that back. And today, we administered to our 10th graders for the first time in January with really good turnout, which I'll let them brag about because that's their victory. And as a result of that, students who pass the English Regents early in their high school career would be given the opportunity to choose courses rather than taking a traditional English 11 or English 12. And so these courses are proposed as half-year options for satisfying English 11 and English 12 credits. Did I do that all right? All right.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time with us. I know it's a lot of courses to look through and digest, but we're really excited about the opportunity that they present our kids. So as Mrs. Geithner said, we tested our 10th grade cohort and any students who still needed the exam today. We were supposed to have 278, 260 showed up, so only 18 absences, 93% turnout, which is phenomenal, which I don't think we've seen that in a while, of that many students coming to the test and taking it and sitting 2-hour mark hit, and I could not believe how many kids were still sitting there today wanting to just do as well as they could. So we were really, the whole department just all looked at each other. We're just like, oh my goodness, there's probably only an 8 for the kids that raised their hand to leave. So tomorrow we're going to be scoring, and I look forward to seeing the results and a lot of our kids meeting this requirement so they can check that box for Regents and move on to other things that they would like to take. So it brings us to our courses. So as Mrs. Geithner said, these are all half-credit courses, so students would, over their 11th and 12th grade year, they would pick 4 different ones. And we want to just make sure that we're able to create a variety of different things that we could change out and offer at any given time. So we're not going to be offering all of these any given year. We're only going to be offering the ones that we have the capacity to teach at any given year, and then we'll have a repertoire of them to pull from and change out each year, depending on what's been interest. It's driven by the kids. So if the kids want them, we'll have them. If I have teachers that want to teach them, we'll run them, and we'll create engagement all the way around. That's the goal.
So if you're not pulling or doing each class every year, does that mean that your syllabus and the pieces that you're choosing to have the kids go over each year will be different? Because some of these topics, I just feel like I would want a little more information on them, and I know that you don't have your course completely done at this point. It's just this little brief synopsis here, but I mean, some of these are pretty controversial courses that I'm not 100% sure I want to put my backing into without knowing exactly what's going into it.
Can you let me know, Brenda, what's controversial?
Well, the media and propaganda one, kind of a controversial topic.
So just to frame, you know, as we had this great discussion this evening, the process has always been, and it has been that we've come to the board with a description like this in the past. And that, you know, because I did do some legwork in between, because we've done courses over my 8 years here. And, you know, there's more here, there's a great opportunity that we've created, I think, and that's part of what we're doing. But the process has always been that, and then what happens is that we then develop the curriculum, after we identify who the kids are that want, if we get enough kids that sign up for courses, then the idea is then we'll pay our teachers to then spend that time developing the curriculum in that. And then obviously those curriculums are all available to anybody in the community. I mean, not just the board, but then everybody. So I guess that's our normal process. We'd have to change our process that we use now to change. So I just want to explain what the process has been, how it's come here without having all of the things some of the things you had asked. So I just wanted to
No, I
clarify.
totally appreciate that.
So we knew what the process was, that's all.
And I wanted to state that I'm not against these. I just know as we try to be as unbiased as possible, sometimes I just wouldn't want to see it be one-sided in some of the courses. I mean, this is a lot of modern-day society, so we know what we see, and I'm just a little concerned. So, not that I'm not for it, I think that it's wonderful to bring new opportunities to our students, and I'm just, and maybe it's because I have students at the collegiate level who I've seen take certain types of things where it's been very, very biased. So, for them, you know, and to listen to them, and this is a high school level we're talking about. So I was just curious if maybe you have off the top, like, what are some of the pieces that you might think might go into some of these courses?
So I'm wondering, Danielle, is that part of what's you're gonna go through like Nate did on his first two courses, you're gonna kind of hit some of these, or?
Yeah.
You're gonna go through, I didn't know you're going through some of the slides tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I have all the slides and all the courses.
Yeah, so maybe.
I can go through them, but as Mr. Covino said, I mean, we don't have the syllabi created, and it would really be, these courses were only brought to you because the teachers came to me and we discussed it as a department, and they said, these are courses that we would love to teach. And that in talking to my students and in teaching here for so many years, we think that kids would really be engaged with these topics, and we can create something that they would be loving to take, that they would enjoy English class, that would be something relevant to them. So as far as like what the content would be specifically, once a teacher develops it, we'll have the syllabus, we'll know what that course will look like, we'll have an idea of the pieces that go into it. I can tell you from conversations some of the pieces they might be thinking about and the angle that they're going with it. But the beauty of this is truly that it's organic and it's based a lot on what the kids' interests are. You know, you talk about a class like media and propaganda, or even our class that we're running right now. We're running a communication and literature class and journalism. It's all based on kids driving the research and what they want to journal about. What are they interested in? What do they want to research more? I mean, so the teacher doesn't dictate what that class looks like. It's really being driven by their interests, and skills are the framework. The content comes from other sources.
And I will say, for a course like the media and propaganda course, in the description that department has developed, it also crosses over to our digital literacy and citizenship standards that we are obligated to teach our students. So the objective is really, how do I take in all of the information from whatever source it's coming, right? Mm-hmm. And be able to distill it and understand what's factual, what's a sales pitch, what's something else entirely, what's made up on Facebook, you know, those types of things to give our students this critical thinking. So that, when we've discussed this course in particular and some of the others that you'll hear about, those are the types of cross-cutting concepts that we want to be sure we're offering to students. So it's an English credit, but it's also teaching me to be a savvy consumer of information. And it's not intended, as Danielle said, to promote a particular point of view, but to give students the skills to critically think and analyze information.
Is it right to say that all of these electives being offered, they're still going to, you're still going to integrate all of the standards, the New York State standards? So the standards are the skeleton of it. And then the meat of it, the skin of it, will probably be more student-driven and research-based, probably.
Definitely. And the thing is too, I mean, English is different from all other content areas. We're not bound by content. We're bound by skill and standards. So we can fill that in with a variety of resources and texts. I mean, texts are infinite. They're music, they're art, they're literature, they're all kinds of different, and the kids need to know of the different texts that exist and how they can fit for whatever the subject is that we're discussing. So.
And if you don't mind, I'll throw in real quick. We've had a lot of conversations about these courses and some of them in particular. And I am the farthest person from being any kind of political anything, okay? So but I'm hearing that there are some concerns about some of these. I would like to change one tweak in terms of how we talk about these and think about these. They're not elective courses, they're option courses. So all students have to have 4 years of high school English, 4 credits. And so what we're looking at in these courses is they are course options. So if I'm a student who's looking at the potential of taking, I don't know, let's say there's 6 different courses that are offered in the fall. One of them is, let's just say, the media and propaganda. If I'm reading that description and that's something I'm not comfortable taking, they don't have to. There will be 5 or 6 other courses that they can choose from. So that's one thing that's really important with, we have a lot of courses here because we want students to have choice in what they would like to take. And families for that matter, because they can be a part of the choice as well, so.
And like I said, I'm not against any of these that I saw. I would just want to see that both sides of whatever kind of literature you're putting out is being portrayed and not just one-sided, depending on who's teaching the class type. You know, do you know what, does that make sense?
With you. And I mean, honestly, the onus for that would be on myself as the leader of the department. But we were here, on Mr. Murray, you know, of reviewing, and on you, when you present what is, you know, if you want to see a follow-up curriculum and syllabi, just to know that we are vetting it and we are making sure that we're treating information true to the title, like not like propaganda, but that we are truly giving information to kids so that they can make their own opinions and be informed. If we don't promote that as a society, then what are we doing? You know, that's what we should be fostering. And also the opportunities that a course like that even provides to work with courses such as the WordKeys course. I mean, that would be a great way for them to look at different types of media and different types of opportunities and different careers and deciphering information that's valuable to them, sniffing out the things that are going to be, you know, snares, and being able to make choices that are good for life. So.
Are these anything, most of the curriculums developed, does it have to go to the SED? Have to go to the state and all for approval?
These would have to go to NCAA for approval, and that would be, we just submit the course syllabi, we submit assessments, and then a couple samples of assignments, and then they receive NCAA approval.
But state ed does not approve syllabi at this level. Our mandate from the state is to implement and follow the standards.
And I've got to jump in here, you know, as a parent with young kids, and, you know, media and social media really is something just so different than, you know, when I was in school 20 years ago. You know, it's just different, and to see where my children are getting their information from, and then now with such an uncertainty between AI and like ChatGPT, and them not being able to distinguish what a real journalist is versus an entertainer versus a computerized written article. I mean, that really is going to be a need in the future for them to be able to figure out, is this an accurate source? Is this a reputable source? It's, you know, it is definitely a concern for me as a parent.
Great. You want to walk through some of the courses?
Didn't mean to bombard you.
No, that's fine. Please bring it on. I'm very passionate about this. It's something I've been wanting for a very long time, and I'm just so grateful that all of you and the administration has supported moving this stuff forward. So. I'm not going to read all the course descriptions to you, that would be tedious, but documentary studies is one of them, and at the bottom you'll notice there's we did a survey with students, and I just put the number of students that were interested and how many sections that could represent. Obviously, that would be over how many courses and how many different choices, but that just gives you the general view for that particular course.
How many students total were surveyed?
383 respondents, but that included community members and people like that too. So it was the exact number of students, a little over 300 of that number for sure.
And went down into junior high as well, right?
We did it across the board. Yep, we wanted to see who.
Because they're the future.
So 7-12?
Yep.
And our idea is that as sophomores and in the jump year to survey them again to help us with their switch classes. So we plan on getting more input.
All of them are going to be healthily full, if that's a word. I'm going to go with it. I did not excel in English. our idea in what she was talking about in terms of not offering them all at the same time is our idea really is just to kind of paint a picture of it, like roughly half of them would be offered 1 year, and then the other half would be offered the next year. And that would allow students to be able to choose from all of them at least 4 times, because they're gonna be taking 4 choice courses. So these are, I mean, really these sections really are gonna be ballooned because not every student responded. So they're gonna be even higher than, you know, what you're seeing up there.
And we wouldn't offer courses that are like, so for example, you'll see cinematography and documentary studies, they're both based on film.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't offer those next to each other, I would offer them an alternate year. Things like that. You'll see there's a few that have crossover that I would try to vary them so that they appeal to different groups at different times. There's media and propaganda. We can keep going, I'm just gonna go quickly. This one is really awesome. I love the opportunity this could possibly open up to collaborate with, possibly.
Would it fall into that?
We're hoping.
Okay.
Again, these are all proposals that would then need to have curriculum time for development.
What were you gonna say, pathway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, the meeting.
IAAP,
Yes.
Individual Arts Assessment Pathway.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Well, the thing is too, with the Blue Ribbon Commission coming out, Next Gen Standards obviously in motion, with the 2026 being the first administration of that in June. And then just the way the state's going with this more cross-curricular approach, we need to set ourselves up for courses that will allow those opportunities, and English is a perfect avenue for that. Courses such as this would be amazing to have. Study music and look at it as a text. I mean, how awesome is that? It's poetry. Okay, next. This one, I have a passion for. I think it's an amazing opportunity to put this in front of our students. We obviously have studied historically a lot of authors that are primarily white, I'll just come right out and say it, and we don't really focus on voices from African-American literature studies. I'm thinking of texts by W.E.B. Du Bois, I'm thinking about Malcolm X, I'm thinking about Harriet Tubman, I'm thinking about Maya Angelou, and just really focusing on those authors and the story that they tell. I'm not discrediting that there should be also maybe, I mean, we have a wide variety of population here, maybe there's a, you know, Latino studies class or different, I mean, there's different ethnicities that we could definitely study and focus on. But to give this its due diligence, I think our students, 145 students expressed interest, so I think it's worth putting in front of them and seeing if they would be interested in that option. Next.
Quick question as we're going through these. Is there any possibility of teaming up with a college? Because I know I'm listening to some of these course names and I'm like, oh, I can see this being one of the 3 credit courses I took as an elective in college. I'm just wondering, you know, once we get approved, once we get in, if that's going to be something to look at as well, because I could see myself as a student saying, well, I really want to take the college credit course, but God, I really want to do documentary studies. That's where my heart is. But, you know, I mean, you can't do both, but I just don't know if there's a way to try and work that in, that they can get the credit and do the courses they want to do.
I haven't explored it yet, but I would guess, I mean, we already have OCC, we have our OCC concurrent enrollment classes, and I know that there are other courses through CCC and OCC that might, I'll speak to it, but I don't know for sure, I haven't looked at it, that we might be able to offer through our dual enrollment, and if we have the course already approved, board approved, we could just tweak it to fit what the college would need, and then we could have a college credit bearing course that would have the same
I
title.
figure that's the next step after we get this stuff going.
Yes, definitely.
And the answer is absolutely. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
We're actually adding 3 probably technology courses this year that are going to be dual enrollment courses out of a conversation with advanced manufacturing. So we're looking at this all the time.
Perfect.
Yes.
Fulton is doing a phenomenal job with that, by the way. If you compare what we have to other schools, we have more AP and college courses than most. So it's a real feather in our cap. This one, we also have sci-fi. So we have study dystopia and then sci-fi. Those are 2 I wouldn't offer at the same time, but this one kind of has a different take on it. Just the idea of dystopia, literature, Fahrenheit 451. The Road, nobody's ever read The Road. It's an awesome, my students over here are shaking their heads. Okay, next. Creative writing. This was near and dear to a few of our teachers' hearts. Just an opportunity to write in not your standard essay format, but to really just be creative, write stories, and just have fun with writing. A lot of kids were interested in this one. Memoir, a couple of teachers who were interested in teaching this class. They mentioned books such as Educated by Tara Westover, if anybody's ever read that, it's a phenomenal book. Just really studying the art of memoir and what that does for the human psyche and why it's important to think about it. This one is another one that I'd love to see go in our art department. Just studying the beauty of art and how it's a text and how it can be analyzed in the same way that we analyze literature, looking at metaphors and similes and tone and mood and all the wonderful things that are represented in literature that is also represented in art. Study of war and literature, this one kind of has a historical bent, but really looking at how conflict as a whole has shaped literature and also shaped us as people, and how the art of war could probably be pulled in there. This one's kind of your standard college class, which is modern literature, contemporary modern literature, but I would probably run this alternate to young adult lit. It's probably similar in themes, but I think that type of literature is probably where this course would go. I put this one on there. I have a couple teachers who were all about wanting to teach this, but some students were interested in it. We put it to the kids and we see what they want to do with it, but there is some great British literature out there if you are interested in that sort of stuff. This one is interesting. We would have to have the right teacher who would be willing to teach it. Right now I have one teacher who was interested in it, but we're not going to run it if it's approved. We wouldn't put it in the catalog because I don't have the teacher on board entirely for it, but it would be an interesting one to run at some point and see where students would like to go with this idea of studying the earth, but also connecting it to our literature and thinking about how humans connect to the earth and how we treat the earth. It's kind of got a science bent to it. I could see this being a great cross-curricular course in the science class. Study of comic books kind of speaks for itself. It'd be a lot of fun. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in that one. Wonderful poetry class. All different poetry, variety, different kinds. Cinematography, you're fine. Cinematography. This is a fun one. I'm sure we get a lot of students that would want this. Everybody knows cinematography is the study of film, but not just film as just watching a movie, but what is the craft, the art behind it. I might bring Jake Geiger in as a guest speaker.
He would be so thrilled.
Yes, I know he would be. This one, it sounds like it would be controversial, but really, I think it's meaningful, and actually a lot of students expressed interest in this. Just, not that it would be a dark class, depressing, but it would just be a real approach to reading literature, and this is something that we all have to deal with in life, and it actually might be very cathartic for some students to take something like this. Maybe that would be a draw for them if they're going through something they feel like this would help them with. That's it. Any other questions?
So as we talked about some of those possible art and music classes falling into our 4+ pathway, there are some here that are related to history, or would they fall into our civic readiness?
So we would have some work to do on establishing them as courses that fell under both departments. So we are very excited about that possibility, but we also need to, a lot of this will be guided by what comes out of the Regents Blue Ribbon Commission report and the latitude and flexibility we have for this kind of collaborative project. So to be determined, but we, with the approval of courses like this, we will be set up really well to take that next step when we are given rein to do that.
Sounds like a really well thought out pilot to what's to come in the future, and just to see how the kids respond. I know that, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Sutina Cunningham.
you were just so excited throughout the whole thing. You're shaking your head and your eyes were lit up. So, I mean, it was great. So I can just imagine how our student body is going to respond, and I just see one.
Yeah, I love it, really, just being able to see like all the new stuff that is to come. I'm so excited. So.
And I do have to say, the department did a very good job of trying to forecast, like to your point about the seal of Pacific Airlines, forecast things that have possibilities if we could get the approval and run with it, where we can go with it. So it was very strategic in terms of what was discussed and what we developed to try to help promote some of those crossovers.
I've been working closely with Mr. Fasula, the social studies department chair, and he's looked through all of these and he sees a lot of possibility for some collaboration too, especially with like the war course, and we would love to be able to collaborate and have some even co-talk classes. That would be amazing. Thank you. But we'll see.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Danielle. Great job. Mr.
Do you have
Murray,
any
thank you.
questions for the evening?
Thank you, Ms. Florio. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item this evening is on our last agenda. We're here, so multi-tiered systems of support.
Yeah.
Mrs. Geithner.
Good evening. Again, I want to take the opportunity to introduce Lynette DePoint, who will be guiding the presentation, guiding us through this presentation this evening. Lynette currently serves as our multi-tiered systems of support coordinator, and she pulled together information from a lot of members of our staff and from a lot of our pre-existing documents to bring us to the creation of this Google site. Every school district has to have either an RTI, response to intervention, or an MTSS plan. We will be asking at the next board meeting that you approve the plan that you see today as our official plan that will be posted on our website. It is coming to you at this time in the year as opposed to earlier because you may recall we rolled out Branching Minds as a new platform for data analysis and plan documentation at the beginning of this school year. And we also have been refining some of our multi-tiered systems of support team structures. So the plan that you see now is representative of our current status and the consensus that has been built around our intervention systems over last spring into the summer and into the first part of this school year. Our teams will meet, as you are aware, it is a half day for students on February 9th. The afternoon will be spent by our staff analyzing our mid-year data and developing plans for adjustments to instruction and intervention for the next half of the school year going forward. So this tool is definitely something that gets utilized in that process. And we look forward to your feedback on this site. It is a living document. We tend to continue to update it. And our staff has previewed as well, and our administrative team. So any input that you have for us, because this will be the public-facing version of the plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lynette, who can walk us through what's been created.
Thank you. So as Jerry mentioned, this is the digital version of what would have been in the past our kind of paper document that we had. And what I really like about that is it feels less kind of cumbersome and overwhelming when you look at this document. You're able to look at piece by piece and kind of dig into each of the sections. So this evening I'm just going to kind of show you the structure of it, show you how it was built, but I'm not going to read you each and every slide. So at some point, take some time to read through, and again, any feedback that you have is welcome. And I'm at the point now where I've read it so many times, I can just about recite it, and if there was something minor in there, I think I'd miss it. So it starts right out on our homepage of just going over what is MTSS, what is the multi-tiered system of support. And it jumps into why we need to assess all of our students. We're not looking at just a lower level student or a higher level student. We want to make sure we're looking at all students, and we're not looking at them just in an academic lens. We want to make sure that we have the social emotional part and the behavioral health and attendance as well. So we're servicing the whole student, and that's what our MTSS framework does for us. Go ahead. The next tab is our introduction and overview. Again, here's the why, and this also includes our required components on there. So we have board policy around RTI and what we're required to share. So that's part of the why we have this site here, but this is really driving a lot of our meetings that we're having in school and a lot of the discussions that we're having. It's helping to create this structure for all of our teachers to follow that provides kind of equal opportunities and access for all of our students. So our MTSS teams, when you go into this one, it's broken into 3 drop downs for K6, 7, 8, and 9, 12. The general kind of meat of what is in each of these is the same, but because our buildings all just have slightly different feel to them, there are small changes. Whereas on this one, we have problem-solving team, and I think at the high school it has a different acronym. But this goes through, so at the very top in the blue, we have our universal data team. It looks at all of our systems within our schools, within our district. We look at building my data, and we have these meetings in building 3 times a year. Then we jump into our building level work, and this is where every week our teams are coming together and meeting, and they're looking at their tier 1 supports. So we're gonna get a second into what the different tiers are, but we wanna make sure that everybody is having equal access to all of the curriculum. From there, we'll jump into a problem-solving team. I actually sat at one of them today at one of our buildings, and this is where they come together and say, okay, we've been providing these supports, we've been providing some interventions, and some students are excelling, some are maybe kind of stagnant, some are struggling. What are we going to do about it? And it brings us together as an entire team. And then when we get to a point where we're saying we're kind of stuck, we need even more support, it brings us down to that last level, which is our intervention team. And again, we have those discussions across the entire district to make sure that our students have all of the supports that they need. If you just scroll down a little bit more, this part at the bottom, these colored pages go along with each of those. These were created last year / over the summer. But people have become more well-versed in using them in our meetings this year. They all have the purpose of the meeting, who should be at the meeting, what the roles look like within the meeting, and then also what an agenda might look like. And it has been really, really great for our teams to help to streamline our practices. You can start to see that we are answering all of the questions throughout that meeting structure from the top down to the bottom. To make sure that our kids are getting all of the supports from everyone receives support trickled down to we need some pretty intensive things for certain kids. So that's the one for the universal data team, but there's one for each of the meeting structures. The next tab at the top is our tiered instruction. So we're kind of starting big and now working our way down. So I talked about our tiered levels of supports. This tab really goes into what those tiers are. I love this visual showing that everyone is getting that differentiated core. So core instruction is for all. That's our tier 1 level of support. Strategic support would be between 5 and 15%, but those kids are still getting that same tier 1, still getting what we're offering all students. And then some students need intensive support. Those students would still be able to get that strategic support, and then also the differentiated core. We think of it as the core and more, and then the core and more and more. And then this just goes into, again, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and what that looks like. The next tab is assessment. So within our district, we follow this kind of assessment cycle. We start off with universal screening, so all students would have universal screening. Again, we do universal screening 3 times a year, and it kind of helps us to identify base level, big picture needs, It's really just a starting point. We take the universal screeners, and even if it says that someone is in a high level of need, we still really dig into that student and look at other factors to make sure that we're providing them the correct supports. After universal screening, we then have another layer, diagnostics. So we'll have some students who we know that they need some more, but we need to provide diagnostic assessments to see exactly what it is that they need, and it starts to drill down a little bit more. And then when we're providing interventions and supports for students, we want to make sure that we have progress monitoring. We don't want to keep doing more of the same if it isn't working, and if a student is really excelling, we want to make sure that we're acknowledging that and getting them into new supports so they can continue to grow. So now we're going to kind of go down another level, and we have literacy, math, and then we're going to go into behavior and attendance. So these are now kind of our cores, and I had a lot of support from some of my teammates here. Tried to keep it, again, not overwhelming as far as the look of this page, but each of these are a drop down with quite a bit of information kind of hidden inside. So the next three will look very similar with literacy, math, and then the behavioral. Starting with a drop down with our universal screeners. So you can see what we offer for all students. And then we go into our tiers. So the tiered supports, again, the universal core is what we offer for all students. So you'll see it broken down by level. Right at the very top, I did link the Lens of Learning. That's been a fantastic site. I have a student in high school, and we just were on the Lens of Learning the other day talking about the courses right now, like who's teaching these courses, what's the content, what's it look like. It's been a great resource as a parent. So we made sure that that was linked on there for the tier 1 of what's offered. But then also we have what we have at K5, 6, 7, 8, and then for 9, 12, those are also linked right to the Lens of Learning, each of these courses. As the courses kind of change and update, this section will have to be updated as well. And then if you keep scrolling down, please, you'll see tiers 2 and 3, and they both are linked to our interventions inventory. The site won't have to be updated when things change on the interventions inventory because this links you right to this document. And it should open. Perfect. And this will bring you through, again, this is the tier 2, the next link is our tier 3. You'll see something very similar on the math tab, and then again on the behavior. These parts look very similar, and you can see right on here the progress monitoring that we offer for these interventions. Thank you. You can see we have a great number of supports and resources for reading. It is fantastic. We have options for every level and many options. This is something where, Renee, feel free to chime in, but this is something where as we are in that Branching Mind site that Geithner had mentioned before, we're looking at what we're using most frequently, and we're looking at the things that the kids are moving with and which they're responding the best to. We'll continue to update the inventories to make sure that we have the best possible options for the kids on there. All right, if you want to go back to the site, so for math, we don't really need to go back into all of the inventories. The structure is exactly the same. And then, why don't you just jump into tier 1 for me, please? Thank you. So again, the Lens of Learning site is there, and here are our tier 1 options for mathematics. And then you'll see the same under 2 and 3 where you can open a separate document that will show you those inventories. And then up tab under more, we have social emotional skills and behavior. And it's set up again very similarly. We also have an attached tier 2 and tier 3. Can you just go ahead into the next one and go into attendance? This one looks a little bit different. Just attendance and the way that we support it isn't quite structured the same way with an interventions inventory and all of those pieces. But we do use attendance works quite a bit, a lot of resources that we use there with our families. If you scroll down, we have kind of an added layer here, these foundational supports that are kind of just the way that we do business with attendance, our culture that we built here. And then we jump into the tiers, like what we offer for all of our students. And again, this is still a living, breathing document, a work in progress. As we find new things that are working well with kids, we will continue to update and add. But these are some of the resources that we have currently.
I'm not sure who the best person to ask would be, but how does a tiered system interact with, say you speak another language or you're blind like me, and it's not necessarily the learning process of the tier 1 that's the difficulty, but getting the information in a way that you can process it. Does that deal with tiers, or is that a whole separate area?
So a student who's an English language learner or a student who has a disability would have all of the same access to all of the tiers, plus whatever additional accommodations and supports are necessary to access tier 1. So a student with a disability may be struggling in reading. They might have supports and accommodations within their IEP, but they're also going to have small group interventions in alignment with our reading intervention inventory. So they are systems that overlap and support one another, but a student with a disability or an English language learner would have access to all of the tiered supports as well.
So it's assuming more of those are in place and then they're in the tiered system like regular?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you,
Right.
that makes more sense.
Yeah. So the IEP or the English language learner plan would be like the umbrella over all of this, I guess is a good way to think of it.
Sure. Yeah, back at the beginning when we had showed the color structures, and the very bottom one was the intervention team. That could be a place where a student may end up then with an IEP or needing some sort of additional supports, but it might not be. And either way, they would still have the option to be getting tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1, just like every other student. The last tab, actually there are 2 more. Dan Sherman snuck one in there at the end. The second to last tab is resources. There are live links in here to everything that was referenced all throughout. We added in our graduation requirements, instructional minutes, there's the lens of learning. We have our second step information for families on here as well. This piece also, I think this resource bank will continue to grow for us as we probably even get some questions and people are wondering more things, and we'll add more resources and that will be of support. The final link that was added there, we had an MTSS resource site for teachers. This is still under construction. This is going to be a staff-only link, and it's just going to be an easy place for staff to be able to be on the main site, but also get to those individual resources that they needed. We were trying not to have 2 completely separate sites where then people can't find one and the other and back and forth. So these will be things that are specifically necessary and important for staff only.
These are password accessed, like curricular resources, intervention resources, and data that would be confidential.
Yes, I did ask him earlier if maybe we would want this to, instead of being its own tab, be a link in the resources. But that's something that we're still working through, but that's what this site is, to make sure that our staff can get to all of the resources that they need.
So I have a couple questions. What is the purpose of this? Like, who's the target audience for this?
So we are required as a district to have a written MTSS plan. So
Okay.
this satisfies that requirement, but we found that paper document in a standard legalese template wasn't particularly user-friendly for anyone. So the target audience here is our staff and our families. So this is really for everybody to have access and information that will hopefully help them make good decisions. And another way for us to engage families in this partnership, so the information is there, they can review it on their own time and in their own way, and then come back with their own questions. So if I'm going to get a letter as a parent that says, coming soon after our February 9th day, parents may get a letter saying your child has been receiving an intervention, this is what the intervention program is, here's the provider of the intervention. They can then use this site, delve into it a little bit more, understand how we arrived at that decision, and then certainly at any time have a conversation with the teacher, the principal, or the intervention provider to learn more.
So on your letter, you'll link
Yes.
for them?
Yes.
And is it easy to find, or will it be easy to find on our webpage?
We haven't placed it yet, but as soon as we've presented this information to you and it's adopted, then yes, we will place it prominently on our webpage.
So it'll be like right on the front homepage, easy to find.
So is there a place where if I have questions about how do I know who to contact?
So in the, we can certainly add some information, but we always say to start with the provider, the classroom teacher, or the provider of the intervention.
Okay.
So that will be in those individual letters because it's going to vary from student to student, but that's good feedback. So it's a general information. We could say if your child is receiving an intervention, begin with the classroom teacher or the provider of the intervention.
Yeah, I just,
To be
when I
that
looked at it, I was
explicit.
like, this is a lot of information, and a lot of it is good information, but, and obviously, we kind of know what we're looking at, but to anyone,
Right.
it can be overwhelming, right? To a parent, it can be overwhelming, and,
A ton of information.
and I will tell you that the first thing I look for is contact information.
Right.
Like, who can I reach out to, because I will have questions, and where can I go?
So we can definitely add that right even to the main page. If you have questions about any supports your child is receiving in school, please begin with the classroom teacher and or the intervention provider, and then the building
Even a
principal.
generic email
Yeah.
that someone else can forward to the appropriate person. Do you know what I mean?
I'll defer to the tech.
Are you saying like a generic helpline, like I need help getting to this person, and then they kind of create the connection for you? Just one less step for the parent to try and find who their team, like that kind of stuff?
So if I can chime in real quickly, I'm just going to promote Let's Talk Again, because that really is the goal of that link, because we do kind of look at that and triage and determine where those questions go. So if there's a question about this, you could use that.
Yeah, and to Jess's point, like I'm thinking like at the secondary level, like where you don't just have one classroom teacher, you have a million, and so where well, there's 12 L's, so yeah, a million. So, I mean, you know, just to figure out who to contact to make sure you don't, everything's organized in one spot for sure.
I have a question about the support system in general. So if you're in high school and you're taking an algebra class, maybe like Algebra 2, I'm not sure of the answer to this, but if you're taking Algebra 2, are you on grade level? What if my child is in that class and they're struggling? And if they're getting tier 1, but they need supplemental because 70 isn't doing well, like what's gonna happen on the Regents? Am I gonna fall below that 65, or am I going to luck out and pass at Regents? How do we progress monitor or get like the supplemental instruction that they might need to ensure that they pass it or do really well in that class? Because I see the number 5 to 15% of supplemental, and I don't know where that number comes from, like, what does that mean?
So a lot of this structure that you see in that tiered system is based on the research of generalized how students respond. 80% of students typically respond to tier 1 instruction and meet the expected outcome. That's generalized information. We know that varies across.
Like 80% would pass, like the regions are 80%
Would get a
pass
65 meeting standards, right?
80%.
So again, it's based on a medical model and it's
Okay.
not
So
entirely
it's not
accurate.
like-
It's very generalized.
Okay.
But when you look at that information as an aggregate of all of the educational studies, that's the most commonly referred to percentages are 80 to 85, 5 to 15, 1 to 5 in those different tiers. But again, it varies significantly depending on the needs of the student population, points in time, other factors. So for a class like Algebra 2, for example, you're looking at Tier 1 Universal Core Instruction, plus if a student is struggling on a specific skill or concept, doesn't do well on a specific quiz or test, they might have some of the Tier 2 targeted instruction and intervention within the classroom. There isn't a separate Tier 3 structure for a student who would be getting a 70, for example, because in theory, they're meeting standards. And it's, then review classes come into play and other things that are offered for students more broadly. The RTI model really was designed initially for K4. We really stretch it to the greatest degree possible, and the concepts are good pre-K through 12, because if someone's struggling, a student is struggling with learning something different has to happen. At the high school level, beyond 9th grade, a lot of that happens within the classroom.
But have we looked at providing something supplemental for the kids outside of the classroom?
If they're like low in a math, don't they have a math lab that can be added to their bell block?
So for algebra and geometry, yes. After those 2 math courses, there isn't that same lab structure. And the extra that we've looked to provide are those opportunities for review classes and other things that are offered periodically, but it's not the same kind of structured system and responsive system that you would see at the earlier grades. It's a struggle, quite frankly, at high school to create a model that looks the same way it does K through 8. For a lot of different reasons.
Are we looking, or have we looked at what we could do for a more structured system for the high school itself?
I think that's part of, and I'll bring Mr. Murray into the conversation about how guided study hall is used for that type of support and other systems that we have in place and how we can maximize that. Adding additional levels of support would be adding time and staffing. So there are those factors to consider too.
So more often than not, those supports come in with the classroom teacher. However, we do have a work lab, which is staffed by 2 TAs, one that's more humanities, one that's more math science. So for students that are struggling, a lot extra support that maybe can't get it from the teacher that they have, or maybe they need to hear it from somebody else, they can go to the work lab to get extra academic support in really any course.
In any course?
In any course.
When is the work labs, when are they offered? Is
It's
it
open
all
day.
day, all
Yeah, it's open all
day,
day.
anytime?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that the difference there is that is not necessarily course specific, that's student specific. So you'd go in and you would get, again, it's STEAM and humanities based, so you go in and get support in English or social studies or some of our humanities-based subjects, and with one teaching assistant, and the other covers the more math and science-based courses. And it's just that extra layer of support. But it's, looking at this MTSS system, it's not the same as very prescripted Tier 3 intervention, for example.
But
Is
it's still extra
It's
help,
extra help, absolutely.
There's like a place where our students can go during the school day.
Yeah,
like
they can
at
go to
any
the
time.
library. Like they could go to the library at any point in time, right?
Right.
So they can go to this room at any point in time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Do we survey the kids though to make sure that what we're offering in there is meeting their needs, that the people, I know that they're based in that, but you get into some of these math classes and it can be very hard and confusing. Are we at least pulling them to say, is there any other supports that you need? See if we can put those interventions in place?
How many kids are using this?
That too.
I mean, are there like a lot of kids that are using it?
Are you talking work lab?
Work
Yeah.
I would say on a bell-to-bell basis, there's anywhere from 5 to 10 kids in there probably.
Okay.
Per
Roughly.
bell. You said
What's that?
per bell, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they're not giving you feedback, Nate, that's saying that what they're going for is not being provided, right? Like.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
they can get the help that they need from.
Yeah, is there anything else that we need, to get in there?
I think it's not at the fault of our students, but like, when Olivia was going through Regents and there were, I was very proactive in asking what teachers are offering review classes, when are these review classes? Because if I didn't do that, she wouldn't have gone. Like you know what I mean? Like I had to make her go and say, hey, I don't care if you don't do anything for a half hour, go, and if you have one question answered. So I think a lot of times the students, that we have to push them to use those resources, like they're not, as parents, we need to push them to use those resources because a lot of times, they don't want to do it for whatever reason.
And that I think was part of the plan, Mr. Murray and his team sending those letters home about when your child should be reporting during Regents Week.
Yes.
To get extra help and support.
Yeah.
And the calendar that was posted in the family updates and other things that Mr. Murray is sharing from the high school for that perspective. From a research base and a practice base, this has definitely been a much more difficult system to implement at the high school level.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of our presentations is so much easier to present and get data for the younger kids, but as they get older, the data seems to.
And you also have a full schedule, right? And academic intervention is not credit bearing. So for a student who is, taking classes and meeting standards, saying we really want to move you to from a 70 to a 95, and you're going to need to take this extra class, has not been well received.
I'm sure it's a scheduling nightmare, but at the same time, I'm looking at the tier 1 and tier 2, like I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what has ever been supplemental at the high school. I don't know, and I surely don't know the intensive part, just for the stuff above the core instruction.
The supplemental, oftentimes, regardless of the level, is classroom-based reteaching. Like I give a quiz or I use an exit ticket in my classroom, and most of my kids didn't get it, so I'm going to either reteach the whole lesson or I'm going to pull small groups and reteach. So
and that would be great, but I just from listening to my own kids and everything, like that doesn't always happen. And just what can we do to make sure that it happens? Because. Right, they're kids and they're not all the time doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes, no, my point was just explaining that it's not always something separate.
And I was just teachers, of course, I'm one too, you try to reach everybody. But if a child, one of my students is not learning the way I'm teaching the whole group, what am I going to do for that one child? Or what is that one child supposed to do? Is that when you reach out for the supplemental?
So again, it could be reteaching, it could be setting up a system where we're tag teaming with the work lab TA, like something else is happening at the secondary level, or I'm meeting with that child after school or during guided study hall or something.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I was just wondering what the supplemental, what it would look like, because I don't know what it would look like.
It's a pretty wide range. So it's essentially a lot of that tier 2 classroom-based reteaching of the tier 1 course.
So it's not like you're going into having another class. It would be up to the teacher to reteach it again.
Correct.
And for the student to learn.
And a lot of the tier 3 is very often separate. Tier 2 is not always separate.
What would the tier 3 look like?
So at the high school, Reading and Writing for Success is a class that we offer for students who are struggling, and it also looks like those math labs.
Another thing that we put into place at the high school that if you saw the family update, we are going to an everyday guided study hall schedule. Moving forward into the second semester, we just did it for the month of January, and a lot of students were taking advantage of trying to get caught up. You know, to your point about students not really wanting to take advantage of that, we certainly have that, but we're finding that students are trying to get extra support and help during that time, so we're gonna move to just an AB schedule for the rest of the year, so that guided study hall is gonna be available to them every day, so they can connect with a staff member if they're struggling. Everyone has the same period throughout the course of the day.
Can teachers request students? Because I know that my kids would never just say, I need extra help, I'm going there.
They can and they do, but you know, to Mrs. Bauer's point, like, the kids actually have to go there.
Can teachers request, or can parents request that? They can just.
They can, the kids have to actually go there.
Yeah, I
Yes,
have
we
one
do.
that works there.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we certainly run into that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And
I
a
just
lot of
wasn't
this,
sure.
yeah, and a lot of it evolves based on what we learn, what we, new innovative programs that we get access to, scheduling adjustments that we can and do make, and I think that it is all driven by the database conversations that are happening in these meeting structures that we described, and Melinda kind of delineated for you.
Like the PLTs.
Like the PLTs.
So happy to have you back.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be back home.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the link, I looked in the air, I wasn't sure if it was there. We can provide the link to the board members so they can actually.
It was
go
provided in
What was
your
it
backup in the January 9th documents, I believe, so
just re-add
we'll re-add it,
it. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Just we can go through it at our leisure.
yes. Well, I can email it out to all of you right now.
Does the high school have an intervention team? I know that they have the problem-solving team, which I'm trying to understand this. So you have the building PLTs, and then the problem-solving team would probably be
That's still the same PLT.
PLT.
But you may then like pull somebody else with expertise on a particular area that you're talking about. You might pull in your department chair or your instructional coach or
to see what to do.
A member of the student support team if it's about attendance or behavior. So they're the same core teams, they have different meeting agendas as they go through the cycle.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, great job, it was terrific, thank you so much. I know a lot of hours and a lot of people had a lot of input, so it was terrific, thank you. Capital improvement projects, update, fall report from LaChase, Dr. Lisi.
Sure, thank you. We're coming to the end, or close to the end, of our 2019 capital project work. And so I kind of wanted to give you an update of where we were. Just to let you know, the full report we'll put on the business site, on the website, so you can actually see the details and some of the photographs, although most of this work, just to kind of go through the scope, most of this work you can actually see. So the 2019 project was conducted in 5 phases, just to kind of give you an overview here. Phase 1A, I think everyone's sort of seen the work that we've done in the bus loop and the parking lots and so on at the various buildings. That work is complete. The Phase 1B were some of the doors and windows at the junior high school, Volney and Lanigan, some of the masonry repairs at the generators at the high school, Volney and Lanigan as well, some of our backup generator work. Phase 2A is our fire alarm at GRB and Granby and Lanigan. For the most part, that work is done. We are, there's kind of a punch list for some of the work that we still need to either fix or complete there, but we have teams that are conducting that now. Phase 2B is our turf, our track, bleacher work, and our sidewalks and the HVAC at GRB, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And our Phase 2C, which is the last part of this, we're either in the midst of that work or we're looking to complete that over the next 8 to 10 months at the latest. So I'll just kind of review some of that with you here really quick.
What's the 2B bleacher?
The bleacher.
Wasn't the out track?
Yes, yeah. So I can yes, that's correct.
What did we do?
So we, the bleachers and the railing upgrades around the track there. Yeah, those were.
The railings?
Yes, correct.
The railings go up to. Up to the bleachers, up now, there's now hand railings, there wasn't before, you had to walk up with the force, if you will, and balance, now you have handrails.
I
had
go
to
with a lot
walk
of
up with
bleachers,
force.
so I go with a lot of bleachers.
So now there's handrails actually going up all of our, works well. And we also repaired, if you would look, they always made a lot of noise when you walked on them, because they were split. Some of the bottom rails have also been replaced, because you could actually hook a heel through the screw, so that's all been repaired as well. And there was also a full assessment of our bleachers. I had them come in and they did a stress test because they're 30 some odd years old, and they did well, and that's where we found some of the splits in the rails, so that's where we made some of those repairs.
And the track itself, so the track was completed, but we found a couple of issues with it, so they're coming back to repair those too, so we've got a bump on the track, so we'll be able to carry on. Phase 2C, mostly mechanical, but I think the highlight for most folks is the pool, the Granby pool. So we'll be finishing a lot of that work. I think we have a target date of spring 24, 25, at least that's the hope anyway. That we'll be completing that. Most of the rest of the work there was mechanical work, primarily at Fairgrave, working on some of the pipes in there, the electrical switch gear for much of the district. So again, that's work that's not quite completed yet, but looking at end dates in the relatively near future there. So LaChase has acted as our project management group for most of this, and they provide us with regular updates. This happens to be a culmination of that work for 2019, and they provided this full report for us. I did add some photos here, but again, this is just a few of the shots of some of the work that's going on there. The full report, again, with a lot of the photographs will be in there, especially if you want to see some of the mechanical work that they're working on. So obviously you can see the lots and the bus loops and all that good stuff. So.
And the design work for the 23 project has started, our gymnasium, bleachers, the floor work, all of the design is all submitted to FCSD. We're waiting in the queue. The queue right now is somewhere between 14 and 16 weeks, and we've been sitting in there about 10 to 12, so we should be getting that very soon. We're already working on access to the bleachers, things like that. So that work's underway, and they've also, and we can bring photos of that, some of the photos, we could share those at a future board meeting so you can kind of see what we're talking about in there, but that'll be from soup to nuts. The floor will be refinished. It'll be a complete painting job in there. I've been getting a lot more questions from families that are in there. They're asking, is it going to be painted? And the answer is yes. Is the floor going to be redone? The answer is yes. Will we have the logo in there? If we have one.
We can always add
it. We can always add it later. Also, I digress. We will also have new bleacher systems as well, which will also be handicap accessible, which has been a real challenge for many of our families. And that's really, I hope that a lot of our older citizens can now take advantage. I know it's been really hard because they can get access to that first or second run, but it's really hard to get up into those second, third, fourth, fifth levels. And it's for some who are unstable. It's, on their feet. It can be a dangerous, intimidating situation.
It is for me too.
Yeah, well, I was being, for anybody. And so hopefully all of that will be done and things will get out of SCD and we'll be able to do that work this summer. So really from the ceiling to the floor, everything will be updated in there. And then the other project going on this summer that Dr. Lisi, that's part of the federal funds, ARP funds, there's HVAC system will go on the top of that thing. So we'll actually have a year-round space there that's really good for kids, for testing, whatever we want to do in there. It allows us to now have a facility that's brought into the 2024.
Are we getting new hoops, basketball hoops?
So there's going to be new backboards, and we'll be taking some of the older wooden, white-style ones, and taking the ones that are at the end and put them on. So we'll repurpose the two of the main ones right now. We'll put two new ones, and there'll also be new scoreboards as well.
So the side baskets will be out.
There'll be still the same number of side baskets, and instead of the white, we have two clear ones now.
Okay.
Now there'll be 4 clear ones on the sides and 2 clear ones on the end.
Okay.
I know clear and solid is the best way to describe it.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
And a lot lot of our bathrooms are being replaced and refurbished as part of that.
And we're very close to
That's really
submission for GRB and for Fairgraves bathrooms, the center core bathrooms. So it's not, it's on both floors. So there's center cores, not all bathrooms in the building, but it's the center cores.
And those are gonna be just the single stall bathrooms?
So we can bring, perhaps at the next meeting, we can bring some examples of what we're looking at, but we're really trying to provide more privacy. And we're also looking at how we can supervise. And also, I think it's gonna lend itself to being able to meet a more diverse set of needs for all kids and for those individuals, and more privacy. I think that's really always been an issue, so supervision and privacy are something we've really tried to do. And that's hard, because you want supervision and privacy at the same time. But, you know, the old style doors and all that, so they'll be more stall-like in that. So we can share some of the design. We've really been working closely with Mr. Murray here at the Chamber of Bodley, giving feedback on what they need there, and also a meeting with Ms. Petricola at Fairgrave, getting feedback. And closely, we've had probably 3 or 4 meetings in what, the last 3 or 4 weeks with King & King as well. And bought bathrooms. So
King & King's been great. They brought us a number of different samples, and really a lot of districts are going through the same conversation about what they should look like. And the balance between security and safety, health and privacy is a difficult balance.
A lot to think about.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think we're in a good place for capital projects. And the other thing that Dr. Lisi's been working on, he's been working with on the financing part around the debt limit, and working with Mr. Schuster and his what is their
fiscal advisors.
Yeah, the fiscal advisors, to really see how we can kind of take advantage of the now getting to 10%, because there are projects right now. I mean, we just added Granby's boilers into the 23 project because we had just welded them back together and they've had some issues with those recently. And that's what's happening. We're constantly playing catch up. So that was something, we're always looking at this project and then saying, are there other projects that we could expand into another capital project, so we're not waiting another 3 or 4 years, because some of our boilers and our infrastructure can't wait that long. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. So constantly looking at how, so that's another piece that we're working on as well. And I believe there's a webinar coming out soon from NISCUS around this topic and how we can expand the use of the 10%. So just an add-on to another. We're working on a lot of different pieces there. Logo mascot. All right, so let me get my notes here. So at your spots this evening, and on the screen, I wanted to share with you the latest rendition, and I'll give you a timeline. So our last board meeting that we had a discussion about this really was 11/28, and really given, you know, from that meeting, we looked at all the feedback that has come out since then, and to that point. So we had a meeting with the students on 12/4, the student artists on the 4th, and then they began working side by side with City BOCES professional graphic artist, as well as the media team there. They spent a number of hours that day. Then they also met on the 12th, the 18th, so the 5th, the 12th, the 18th. They worked side by side. I think one of the feedback that I want to really reinforce on this is they're working with a professional, and have been since this has started. Well back into the fall winter renditions of future, and I think there was some confusion about that, but they've been working side by side. I think that's very unique. I've seen a number of districts turn these mascots and logos around in 3 to 4 months. There was another one just to our north that went 3 to 4 months, and they fired. But again, the process was different. It was handed to a company and 2 renditions, and it came out. We maintained a commitment to our kids. So they took that feedback, and I'll ask Mr. DeJalorme to chip in here at any moment after I finish this, but on the 8th of January, I brought it back to the kids. I just wanted to make sure, this is exactly where you left this. So that was prior to our last meeting, so I just wanted to make sure where we're at, and we didn't have our meeting on the 9th, so that's why we hadn't had that conversation. And then we also had a discussion about, 7 words, and I'm going to ask Nick to add in anything I may have missed. But when we did the surveys back last spring from our target, we had words like respect, grit, kindness, integrity, strength, persevere, and focus. So I said to the kids, talk to me about those 7 words. And they used words like, our dragon is protecting our F. Our F is our historical F. Our community, our kids felt very strongly about this F, in the vote. I think that was a piece that we definitely got back. They talked about that it's holding and protecting us at all times, that it's determined to defend us at all times. Its tail is wrapped around the F and all it stands for, that it's comfort, it's kind, it's holding, it's kind, it's assertive. It's not aggressive, but it's there. There's a presence. They talked about its wings providing focus, strength, that it's huddled. It brings that sense of togetherness. They focus on who we are and what we do. The eyes are, quote, dialed in, protecting, defending, and our perseverance, our willingness that our dragon is willing to defend at all times. So that's really where they brought in the words, you know, when I discussed with them. And Nick spent a lot of time, and I thank him for that. So Nick, you were there for all of those meetings, I think.
Yeah, I was. I'm just observing. They did ask my input at one point, and I said I'm just here to observe, to ensure that this is your project and that no one else has any influence in it. So what got me was those words that you used and how they tied each portion of that dinosaur, each portion of that dragon to one of those words. And I think what they've come up with is a great design.
And what you see on the sheet at the top is the full rendition. And then what they started to do was really start to experiment and work with some of the branding. Because they're working with the graphic artists and the media team. Well, part of that also is how do you brand? So they gave some examples, and then when we were talking, they talked about, well, what could this look like in different ways? So they had examples of, you know, the Fulton City School District and what FCSD could look like, what it could look like with, you know, just different ways to really utilize different parts, you know, of our dragon. So these are just some examples that the PR team was working with the kids with and the graphic artists, and these are just some of the different examples that they generated that evening.
The graphic artist had ball caps. And was able to put each one of these on a ball cap so we could see what it looked like on a white, on a red, on a black.
Are we gonna keep the dragon consistent? I know that I noticed that sometimes the horns are red and sometimes the horns are green. I know it's not really, is that a big deal? I don't know. But is it a big deal? Are we gonna keep it consistent?
I think they were just playing with them. I think we've tried to, I think obviously our base is the green horns.
Okay.
You know, that's something that's easy enough to do. I think the example, I think what happened was they were playing with the one on the left here at the bottom. You see how the green horns blended in with the green background? So I think when they were going through these, these were just some different possibilities, and you can see the red got lost in the S on this one.
All right, so this top one is?
It also has to do with whether you can do 3-color or 2-color printing, like on t-shirts.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's the cost saving conversation that we have, because if you go to, it's either 4 or 3, because there's black in there.
Yep.
It just costs more to have things produced, so trying to save money for students that are buying apparel, that's the color saving option.
And I'd like to say Mr. Murray was very much, and he was super supporting the kids to make sure that they truly got their ideas out there. And Nick and Nate did a fantastic job. And I was in and out, running different kinds of meetings, things and like that. And I was thank you for the work we did with the kids as well. That we really set them free to really work. It was pretty impressive. And I would say I've not heard any other district that has allowed our students to work side by side like that. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the BOCES is currently working with 2 other districts that I remember we're talking about. And the graphic designer did specifically mention that she normally doesn't work with the customer side by side. So she was there, she was adjusting as the kids were adjusting. Take notice of down here the circles where we have the Fulton City School District, and one of them has Lanigan Elementary. It should be over the circle to the right on the bottom. And what we're playing with is each one of those, each school having their own circle with their name.
Oh, so just the name would change?
The name would change.
But everything else would.
There's some other things that we've talked about, but we're gonna put
I think the branding team, the branding aspect, you know, once we decide that this is where we're going, that then you'll see the branding team, the PR team at City BOCES will really help us with branding and really how can we really have this become like we've talked about. really a part of who we are, integrate in, some discussion about, at the elementary level, just how do we, can you make it more usable to them, because they, how do we get them really excited about it, all our kids, pre-K to 12th grade. I even asked the kids, if you had little sisters, brothers, they were like, no, this wouldn't bother, this is, much different than where we're at. So I guess it's open for your discussion. I didn't want to put it on the screen because people take pictures on our live stream and things like that, and then they're posted in places with it, and then it's taken out of context. So I think it's very important that as we roll this out, that we do a presentation at like a future board member meeting where we really have the PR team come and talk about branding and the process of really rolling this out and getting excited about what we're doing here in Fulton. But I think if you look at a lot of the comments that came through emails and through Let's Talk and through the petition, all of those different kinds of things, the kids really took stock in all of the comments and really tried to say, Mr. Pubby, we want to make this really representative. So it's tweaking adjustments. When you make what I'm not an artist by any means. I didn't realize when you tweak one thing, you tweak about 10 other things, kind of as you tweak and move. And you can see they moved from the left side, looking at it, if you will, to now the center. They felt like it really more balanced, that comfort, that wrap, that belief, that all of the different words that we talked about. So
let me open it up and ask Harper some of her thoughts.
On this specifically?
Mm-hmm.
I obviously with the prior mascot that we had chosen, I hadn't heard a lot of great things from the students, and obviously this is the first time that I've been seeing this. Obviously I've heard my dad, he chatted with you about it, I think, about like the logo.
He stopped in and wondered what was going on. We had questions about uniforms, so we asked him.
Yeah.
And the kids were there, and so we said, well, the kids had questions about uniforms, so Mr. L stepped in and answered some questions. That's why you see a few things on here about football, soccer.
Yeah. But after that, I was really excited to see it, and I am really happy to see this. I feel like this is very much more age-friendly through our whole district, other than more specific to, I feel like, the older kids. Like, I like seeing this. I feel like it's very developed, and it still has a lot of the meanings, and I think it looks really nice.
We didn't ask her to say. No, true, the first time you've seen her, right? Yeah.
It is the first time I've seen it. I have not
just so you know, only the people in this room, the 4 artists, Mr. Giesel, I'm sorry, before, and Mr. Murray, I don't think any, and then the PR team. That's it. We really have been very, we wanted to keep this as pure as, and really wanted to bring it to you for your feedback, and then we can plan our next steps.
Are we going to keep the F as our logo? And then
the mascot is dragon, the F is our logo.
The mascot, right?
That's correct.
And when we choose the mascot, are we going to say this is our Fulton Dragon mascot and have that be it? Do you know what I mean? Because you can make different renditions of dragons.
This whatever become, this would be, to me, this is the official dragon for the Fulton City School District.
Okay.
The F is our.
I guess I'm just looking at it from like an athletic standpoint. Like, I'm gonna get a sweatshirt made and it has more of a cartoony dragon that might not look anything like this. That wouldn't be the official. We are the official would be.
This is what
we are.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I've seen some of the elementary schools have tried some different dragon. They're very cute. They're very nice. I think. I guess
I wasn't sure what direction we were going.
No, once we brand.
Official logo, official mascot.
So logo, mascot, colors are all things that will be part of a branding package. And that branding package is the Fulton City School District. So if you went to a print shop and we wanted Fulton, and we were working with a print shop, this would be the branding, the colors, the letter, this would be it. This is, I'm not a PR person, but listening enough over the last year, that's what this is all about. It's about, part of why you create this is you want balance for when you're printing, all of those kinds of things. Complexity was something they took into consideration, color, shape of the F. We do play a little bit with the Fs here and the FCSDs here at the bottom, but they're for different things. So,
right. but you're still Fulton, like, there's no F, and you talk about like the colors. And I know that this isn't cut in stone, but that would be that would be a question. There's no like green around the F.
Yes.
Right, so if this is FCSD and it's all red and there's no green into it, is that?
So you'll see, most of them had, I think,
The regular F, yes.
so I think they were playing some different things, so we just included all these.
I was
They were
just wondering if trying to
get
that
an
is gonna
idea.
be like that. The F
This is
gonna
our
be
official
two
F,
colors
and this is our official dragon.
Okay,
Correct.
gotcha.
And the heads, you notice all the heads are the same heads.
But the coloring
The
of
color
the
of the
heads
horns.
is different.
I think it was because some question, as Mr. Murray indicated, some of these were about colors. Right. Or it was the number of colors and the cost and those kinds of things. So I think that's what they were playing with. But again, I think that's a
Maybe they
discussion
can
I can
take
have
that,
with
right.
the PR team as part of the branding package, to be very specific. This is what we do. And I think that's what happens in school districts sometimes. We get away from what we need to say is, this is the Fulton City School District branding package, and this is our official stuff. This is our official.
I just want to, this may answer your question as well. We haven't talked about our legal counsel yet, but we would likely trademark all of these, which means that these would be our official logo and mascot. That's what we need to be using.
That we would be,
right.
that the district would.
Correct.
And a branding, as part of a branding package. Like
So
this is-
when you decide on the branding package, I'm sure all of that will be taken into consideration, because we will have to talk about uniforms and all of that, okay.
Yep.
Because you could do something like this without the dragon too, because in our past.
I've
we
seen
had
some
just
things like
Fulton.
that. Yeah, that was just cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even on there. Yes.
Something.
Yep.
So,
The first piece of apparel I ever had just that top. Literally.
Yes, that's
That
what
I
my
never made.
jacket is
Yes,
too.
I had a jacket made that years ago. So next steps, I mean, do you want us to come to the next board meeting? I mean, and do an official unveiling and
So,
move forward, or how do you want us?
would they have time in 2 weeks to have the official, everything ready? Like you're saying?
Well, they've already been working on some of these things,
But
so
they would
yes,
need
I would
know,
talk
like-
to Mr.
Like
I
say
would-
maybe they're not using this, like they know what they're doing with it.
I would talk to the, I can talk, I told the PR team that I would be in contact after this meeting. And then he's been raring to go on putting together the branding package. And I can ask some of those specific questions like you asked, you know, that everything we have, it always has RF, you know. Some other, the colors of the horns, for example.
Yes.
And he had talked about putting, you know, a video together, kind of an introductory, exciting unveiling video, as well as a branding package, and what that would include. You would have those examples.
Should we see the branding package before we unveil it?
I can do anything that you would like me to do. I can ask the PR team. I know that we've already been talking about that. And these are some of the examples the kids were playing with. And when Nick and I were talking about this, we felt like it would be good for you to see it in different ways. And these were some of the things that the kids had been playing with that day. Would that say kind of correctly?
For a big unveiling though, I would just hate for something to be off and we would have to change it after spending so much time and having so much excitement build up.
Yeah, I think the key that we're really focused on is that F and the dragon is the key.
Right.
That's really our brand, is that, and then what we take off that, whether it's the use of the head on something and our lettering, just to be consistent.
Yeah, everything should definitely be consistent.
And I think like what was brought up, like for home and away jerseys, if we're limited to 2 colors, what does that look like on the logo that may contain 3? Or the mascot, I mean, in this case?
Yeah, so we have 4 colors really in the, it's black, there's red, there's green, and white. So, so there's 4 colors that we're using. So the question really is, you know, if it's a 2-item, a 3 color, or a 4 color, and it's all about the cost, that's all that is associated with it. Same thing on the uniform.
And also there's the thought too that, you know, for the uniform purposes, you could just go with Fulton Dragons. This teams themselves, when they buy their warm-ups, that's where the dragon itself could go on. Because I know that when my kids played, a lot of their uniforms just said Fulton, you know, and then what the teams themselves picked for their jersey warm-up was okay, this one had the whatever icon on, and, or sometimes it just said Fulton.
We used to have radars on things, you know,
Yeah.
now you might see dragons.
I mean, that's
You know,
something too.
But we're
that
looking at trying to keep as consistent as possible.
Cost-wise, down on jerseys, home versus away, if you're not necessarily putting all the colors in.
Yeah, it's just if we're using red jersey or green jersey, and like, you know, like red on red doesn't work as well as.
That's probably part of the package though, right?
Yep.
Yeah, part of that discussion about the different brandings we would use and that kind of.
So my question again is, to present this in 2 weeks, will your team, the students along with the, you know, City BOCES team, will they be able to have this ready for us, or is this something we should push off? So you have time to make sure everything's together?
Yeah, let me check with them tomorrow and I can let the board know.
Okay.
That would be my thought too, is just whenever they're ready to present, we would present at that.
Yeah, I don't want to rush them. It seems that they're not.
Yeah, they've been working on, I think they've been working on a lot of things just based on what we had so far. But again, obviously, there's a certain point where you want to go any further until we get some green lights here.
Yeah, because we're seeing things like these look very cool, but the colors, yeah, like all the Fs should always be the same kind of thing. Yeah, I hear you.
So I do have a little bit of a concern, and I'm not saying that the students didn't work hard or that it doesn't look great, and I love the improvements. My biggest concern is this entire time we said this was going to be student-led and student voice, and because it is so dramatically different from what they voted on, I'm afraid of what our student population is going to come back and say, well, you know, we didn't even get a discussion or a vote or anything like that, so.
Well, the tweak was to change the head and to change the arms.
Yeah. We made the changes they asked us to make.
Those were made. The wings are the same. The F
There
is
was
the same.
one.
There was one.
There was one, but it's still the same wing, so.
And again, I'm not saying I don't like it, I'm just saying,
Oh,
my
I know.
concern is this still the same as, we've changed it, but, you know, our mass population of students hasn't even seen it or revealed it or, you know, anything like that. So I'm just putting it out there as that part of it makes, you know, they didn't vote on this, they didn't get feedback, you know, whatever.
It's not at that point, like, we didn't come this far to only come this far.
There's nothing to be voted on. The changes were made that were asked to be made.
Who asked for the changes to be made?
This is the final.
Right.
Who asked for the changes to be made, because I don't remember.
The community
How did we,
and.
how? I didn't hear that.
And students.
I didn't hear that.
The students came to Mr. Palvino because of the negativity.
Artists. Okay.
Right, and we had also, at the board meeting on, I can't remember, 28th, there was a lot of feedback about, between the 1114 and 1128, I think it was, there was a lot of feedback that came out, and so they wanted to take that into, and everybody wanted to take that into consideration, including this board. You know, the board talked about that, so we took it back, and as you can see through the timeline, we've met multiple times.
Yeah.
The kids have met with them, the 4 artists, and then took the best of, you know, those pieces they tweaked, they tried to keep as true as to the original design as possible, but addressing the head and the arm in particular, those were the 2 areas that really got a lot of
Attention?
attention, that's a good word.
So we did this because of the attention from where?
So there was,
I don't remember.
I think because there was a student,
Well, there was
student petition.
We had a lot of feedback from the community. There was the petition, not only in the community, there was feedback that started through the petition came out,
But
but
if
there
you
was,
think about it, the petition never made it to us.
no, it didn't.
We, the board, never saw.
And I didn't either get it
So
officially,
that
but we,
didn't really.
I
come
saw
to
a
us.
student petition.
Right, but that was never brought forth before us.
Right.
So the petition part really doesn't affect this as much. I mean, obviously, our student artists knew that there were students in their peer group that wanted to see.
And a lot of
change. So they
But what's
did
the
take.
petition to keep the,
it never was officially given to us.
Yeah, we never did receive, we, the Board of Education,
And
never
neither did the
received.
super.
Okay, and neither did the superintendent.
And not officially, never was given to us. I got it through,
So where did we
Other
get
ways.
changed the wing and the?
Our students artists asked Mr. Cole, well, they actually went in and talked with Mr.
I
Murray.
can certainly speak to this.
Okay, sure.
Right, but it was community
Yeah,
feedback
go
as well. I mean, we were getting emails. All you had to do was look at the social media, you know.
Yeah, but we don't
It was
react
too
to social
evil.
media,
It
that's
was-
why,
This is
that's
Pardon me?
why.
Mr. Murray, could you
That's why.
just, kind of lead us through
Sure.
what happened?
So after the initial logo went to the Board of Education and we approved, the students were hearing all sorts of feedback from students within the building. And that sort of, around the head and the arm, that sort of reinvigorated in them that they weren't overly happy with it either initially. And so there was some confusion that happened in the meeting, which I've been a part of every single one of them with the artists as well. And so this is where really what it boiled down to. One of the students, the artist, came and met with me and said, we really think that we need to go back to the drawing board and edit what has been approved initially for several reasons. One of which is the artist that we're working with at City came back with a redesign on our second meeting that was their face, not their arm, but their face. And so they were under the assumption, the students and myself, that the changes that they came back to us with were because of the printing on paper, on clothing and all that. So they never really questioned it, and I think it's because they were not really sure if they should be questioning a professional in terms of what it should look like. And so, again, based on feedback after the drawing went out, they were like, we don't really like it anyway, can we go back? And so they came back and one of them met with me.
That was after the vote was.
That was after the vote was named, and they asked if they could meet with Mr. Paulino. So I called him, he came over, all the students came in, and actually they met, the three of us with the one student. The other three were brought in on the second day meeting, and they were all in agreement that they wanted to go back to the drawing board and edit what was there to make it more of what they really envisioned. And so that's when we started with the redraw in terms of what they were looking for. So really, this was student-driven from within the student body and the artists themselves. It just, we're agreeing with the student body that they weren't really happy the first time. So.
And because they were not sure that they could question, which I wish that maybe that would have come out before, because it would have been nice to know that they weren't really 100% happy with it themselves, but we, the board, we went off of the student meetings. That's where we, the board, decided to let them do the tweaks. Wasn't because of a petition. I mean, yeah, there was online media, that's not,
Because
we
the
did take
student
that
artists
into place,
asked for
because
it.
the artists asked.
I think that's a very important
Yes.
piece
Oh,
to make sure
absolutely.
everybody understands.
Yeah.
That's
And
why
they
I'm asking
listened.
these questions
Yeah,
like.
no, I'm glad you,
Right.
I'm glad you did.
The
because it
student
brings it
artist
out.
asked for it to be tweaked.
Yes, yeah, and that's what we, the board, supported. We had said right from the beginning that we supported what they wanted to do, it was their piece. And I like that they listened to their student body, really, because in the end, that's what's the most important part, is the students. I like that they provided for us those words that they were looking at and how they were retweaking the image. And
Which were generated from the communities or surveys that were done back in the spring last year.
yes, yep, those words all came from back in the spring.
So the question is whether or not to have the student body vote again? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not necessarily saying vote, I'm just saying that we did this entire process and we narrowed it down from three, down to three, and they voted, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this, I appreciate their hard work. My question is this, because I think we're using the words the students and student artists interchangeably, and it's very murky to me. So I just want to make sure our student body is well represented with this design.
What do you think?
Because they didn't technically, vote on it, and that's all I'm, trying to put out there.
No, yeah, I agree with that. My biggest thing is, were students let know that this was getting updated and edited? Because, I understand that, the artist wanted it changed, but were the students aware that original design was, does everyone know? I know because I'm here, and people, but does everybody know that this is going to be changed? Was everyone aware of that? Like I said, I don't know if it's necessarily a voting kind of thing, because then if it's a vote, are we really willing to come back again? It's more just did everyone know?
So as far as what we did here, we've
Mhm.
talked about it. I would hope that you ladies would have brought back some of this information to your peers to let them know that, because you were both part of sitting in on the meetings. But if the question is valid, did you let students know? Did the elementary student principals know to say, hey, we're looking at something new? So
No, we did not, I'm gonna say we didn't put anything officially out. I think at our last, and I have to go back and watch which board meeting, but we had a discussion where there was even discussion about taking the vote back of what was gonna be done at an official board meeting.
That was 11:20.
So there was a very public discussion.
And
about
many
what we were doing
newspaper
with this.
articles followed.
Right, so that was out there, but getting it down to the granular and having conversations with students, the answer to that is no. There was the public discussion here, the presentation that was done, you know, and then we had a board ratify it, and then right after that, there was, you know, and again, before it went out, and then there was a lot of feedback. Students came to me, and then we've gone through that process. At the next board meeting, there was discussion about do we take the resolution, revote, whatever you want to call that. And so that's kind of where, so we're kind of coming back to now we've got, you know, something that is taken into consideration, a lot of feedback, you know, that was gotten through public kinds of ways. Was there a standardized process? No.
Quick question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
Just to go back through the process in my head. When we, I guess the students voted, maybe this is a better question for you, Harper. There were a couple designs, and then it was voted on that one of those designs was going to go forward, and that was kind of what the logo was going to be based on. Was that design the one that then we were then taking to the people to edit and make it look more professional, Brian, at that point?
No, the one that was voted on was the one that had already been worked with the students, the professional graphic art, all three of them.
Not the one design, the one before that.
So the original winner of the design.
Yes, and then
The students decided to incorporate elements, I think is what he's asking. Wait, you want to know how we got to that
Yeah,
one we
no,
voted on?
like I know the one we voted on was then that had to do with some miscommunication and stuff, and that's how we got into that, you know, situation of who knew what and knew what we were able to do. So we voted, we approved, and then now we're going this next process. But I was just wondering, the ones that the kids voted on and approved, they voted on the one that was then going to be edited by the I guess what I'm saying is, the final design was never the one the kids voted on, correct? They just voted on intent all the way through?
We sent 3 out, so what happened was, it was whittled down from 86 down to 3. It ended up 4 artists because the student culture group liked one of the wings from one of the 4th artists. Those 4 kids worked with the graphic artists on all 3 of those 3 finalists, if you will. Those 3 finalists went out in a survey. In that survey, the one that was brought to the board, was the one that had finished the highest. That was brought to the board at that point in time. So we brought it on the 14th of November, the 28th of November, it was ratified. There was a lot of discussion and feedback right after that evening on the 28th. And then what happened was students came forward when the student art dispersed on that Thursday or Friday. And then we met with all 4 together on the 4th, as I said in my earlier piece. And then on the 5th, you know, and there was discussion on the 28th about, or the 12th rather, about, I have to get all the dates correct, but bottom line is there was discussion from the board talking about even pulling back that vote that we had done or redo that vote, not with the kids, but with the board.
I guess I'm not at that part, I'm at the
So
before.
the 3 were already looked at by the 4 artists, and the 3 were the ones that went out to the students to vote on. And the one that was voted on, the students did see what it exactly was going to look like.
Okay, so out of the 3, 1 came out.
Yes.
And that's the one.
And that was after they had met with the people?
Yes.
They had worked with a professional graphic artist, yes.
When there were 4?
When there were 4, really 3 full drawings. They tweaked, they worked with them.
I guess I'm trying to figure out if there was 1 vote or 2 votes.
Just one.
One vote.
So what I'm saying is, if there wasn't a second vote, didn't they technically vote on the things that they liked, and then it was just turned into this, which was always going to happen with the graphic designers, was they were always providing input all the way along, and then they were going to take this with the designers and finalize it and create a professional.
The designers were involved the whole time, and I'll just answer, and the board was very true.
No, with the, when.
That's why I'm saying I want to clarify each step, because if I'm understanding correctly, then they voted on what they wanted input on, and they said what they liked, and then it was taken to create the one that we voted on.
No.
So there's another step in there I'm missing?
So in August, or whenever it was, end of July, early August,
Yep.
it was sent out, and we went into September. Any student in the Fulton City School District could submit a rendition. All right, we ended up with 86. We took those 86, and we had a process where we brought the student culture team, which is comprised of fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, all the way through 12th grade, representation from every school as well as every grade. We put together a process where they took, if you will, sticky balls, and they used their sticky balls on all 86, which were posted in the right in the hallway outside the small gym here at the junior high. That day, that whittled it down to the 3 finalists, and then there was a fourth. They liked the wing on the one, so we included the 4th artist. Those 4 artists, those 4 selected, then met with the professional graphic designer from City BOCES and that media team. So they were working side by side with professionals. Each one of those artists worked with them together. They actually worked the 4 together, so they each commented and supported each other. Just if I'm saying anything wrong, you're telling me. They met with them, they tweaked each of their designs. Then they said, they thought, okay, they took them back. The feedback I got was that they were ready to go. We sent those 3 out, right? Those 3 went out to the student body, came back, and the one that we brought to the board was the one that had finished in first place based on that vote. It was on, I think, 11/14, 11/28. There had been no feedback between the 14th and 28th. On the 28th, we voted it in, and on the 29th, there was a lot of scuttlebutt, a lot of conversation, a lot of things, a lot of questioning. I had a student artist come to me, I think Nate, you called me that morning, either Thursday or Friday. And then on Monday, as I said, we met with the 4 artists. Their feedback was consistent. They wanted the opportunity. They didn't, I reinforced the importance that they were driving this. If they weren't ready, they shouldn't have said we're ready to go. And, and I'll take responsibility. I should have gone to them and said, are you ready to go before we put the other 3 out? My assumption was they were ready to go because that's the feedback we had. The board's directive was it's student driven. So the one that came forward, and so since then, the 4 meetings, that 3 to 4 sessions that they had, I can't quickly count here, I believe it was 4, that they met with the graphic artists and media teams since 12/5, since December 5th. The outcome of all that work is what you see in front of you. So that's what's brought us to this point here. Is that kind of captured correctly?
Yeah, there was a part, I got all the understanding now.
Okay, yeah, it's confusing. There's a lot of layers. So I guess now we're to the point where we've got a rendition from our from a meeting, which was we were asked to come back, tweak it, bring it back forward based on feedback that we had.
I'm not gonna feel right unless I just say this.
Sure.
Somebody said, I think it was you, Nate, I can't remember though, tonight, that when they were meeting with the professional graphic artist, that the student artists said, I didn't know that we could say that. I didn't think we could do that. And that sort of bothers me.
That was back before.
No,
we're
it was
back to
with,
November.
no, we're talking about this
Not on this one.
because of branding. Because of branding.
No,
we're not talking about this one, we're talking about the original.
That's the original one.
That was the original.
Yeah.
Then people had to chop the problem looking like a devil or.
That couldn't go on.
That was the miscommunication problem, where they didn't know they could speak
Yeah,
up,
we-
and then before they had the chance.
So that bothered me. But that
No,
was,
it's bothered me too,
that
and
was in
I've
the
been-
original, we took care of that? Okay,
That's been,
thank you.
that's what led us.
Okay.
And that's what Brian just said,
Okay.
he takes responsibility for that.
Okay.
And this time,
I thought
took
it was
back.
for this one.
And it-
No, it's not for this one.
No, this one, they're good, and if you remember in my timeline, on January 8th, I took it back to them again, because I said, I want to make sure that, I know you all said this was terrific on 12/18. I want to make sure on 1/8 that the 4 of you are set and good, and Nate was present when I did that.
Yeah, so just a couple things, that the students were, that we've never been through a process like this before. So I think collectively, we all were under the assumption that this is maybe kind of the way it needs to look, again, for the printing purposes, and that's what the students voted on originally. And this is a redesign after realizing that, well, we can have more voice in terms of what it looks like. So they are very happy with this redesign, 100%. And I was very clear in asking them before we stopped, you guys are sure you're good with what this looks like, you're happy with it, they were happy. To go back to something Harper said, I can't remember if anything went out in writing to the student body, but I know I've done at least 1 or 2 PA announcements saying that we are going to redesign
That's what I thought.
the drawing. And I also updated our student district culture team student that we were redesigning this as well. So they're aware.
The district-wide culture.
Correct.
We're aware,
Yeah,
okay.
the 4th through 12th graders.
Alright.
So, and I completely understand what you're saying in terms of getting the student input and feedback. The only question would come about with this is, you know, what would they be voting against? Because this is a redesign of the original winner. So there's really, unless the only way you would do it is if you were to bring a vote back up with this one replacing that middle, because there were 3 options and this was number 2. If you brought back the other 2 and said, okay, 1, 2, 3 again.
It basically, would you put this out and say, do you like this, yes or no? And if everybody said no, if you had more no's, you're going back to the original one that was picked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you're
this
either
was
getting
like
this, or you're getting the one that was originally put forth before us earlier in the fall. You know, I mean, you could put 2 side by side, but this basically is, we had allowed them to make the retweaks, here's the tweaks. So, I mean, the students could say, oh yeah, I like that, or no, I don't. But you take into consideration, if more people say no, you're going back to the original one that was voted in on already. And then this process just was drawn out, and, I mean, this by far is
Yeah, and
looking like, it looks like what the student, I mean, they kept the original left, they kept the original wing, they took the head and the arms and changed, because that is what they heard their student body say the most that they wanted to see changed. It does not look demonic, it's not slashed in the F, it doesn't look like it's terrifying. Like Harper said, or wait, was it you that said it would look more, or maybe one of the student artists said that their younger siblings wouldn't be terrified of this kind of thing. So it's definitely, it's the same, yet a little bit different.
right, and that was my point, is like, I don't necessarily say that we had to have a vote. My point was, were the student body aware that we were tweaking it, and were we listening to their voice as well? And, you know, Mr. Murray clarified that, and we made announcements, we went into culture, and that's all. I just wanted to make sure is that we said it was student driven, and I just wanted to make sure they were aware, you know, moving forward, that this was the direction and could
so it
offer
sounds
input.
like it was put out to them, at least in the older grade levels.
Right, I mean, obviously.
And the culture.
And the culture, that's pretty important. So I guess what my question would be to my colleagues is, do you want the team to put that branding piece together, which then can be put out to, we had talked about in the past, maybe we're bringing it to assemblies at each building, and you're gonna bring it so that every student knows exactly what is
And we can
coming out of their
finally
district.
build in the excitement of it.
I mean, so is that the step that you want us to take?
Yes, I think we need, what I'm hearing is we want to see a branding package and we don't want to rush this.
Yes. Okay, very good. Everybody good?
So for the next meeting, we'll focus on getting the branding
And if
package.
it's not the next meeting,
Well,
because they
right.
need more time,
Right.
then it's not the next
Right.
meeting.
Well, Dragon's done, so now it's the
Dragon's
branding
done.
package is really the
This
PR
isn't-
team.
this
pulling
is
it all
not
together.
going to change.
That's not gonna change.
This is not changing.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
And I think I would say, just so you guys are aware, in terms of, there was a lot of discussion about the branding package piece of this. And I don't know that there would be a lot of extra things on there because a lot of conversation that the students had with the artists were like the design of the F, right? If you think about what our old F looked like in terms of the elements that were brought into that, they had conversations about an F with a wing, and they had conversations about an F with the tail wrapped around the F. They were not really a fan of those things because it didn't have enough dragon for them. When they were looking at it, they're like, well, is this a bird? Is this a lizard tail? Like, they weren't overly happy with just those pieces. They really wanted the head in there because the head screams dragon. So I don't know that it's gonna look much different in terms of packages other than like, you know, an F and then where the head's placed, right? So they were kind of steering away from other things with the F because it just didn't seem to go. So
I think more so it's just there's a lot of different ideas on this page, and we just want to see what's the final, what's it gonna look like, and you know there's all these extra things. Okay, so if we're gonna go with FCSD, what's that gonna look like? Or are we gonna go with this circle? Then what's that gonna look like? And be done with it. You know,
Let me talk to Alex and the PR team, and we'll bring either to the next meeting or one after.
And what about random survey of the students? Thumbs up, thumbs down, like what are, you know, I mean.
I just did that with Harper when we first started talking about it.
Oh.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just if you were to show them, without them saying anything about it, would they give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Like just random and just see what, because I think people will be, well, nobody's gonna be, somebody's gonna complain about it, right? Which it is what it is. But I think people will, for the most part, be happier with what this looks like.
As long as I just think we need to be consistent. Are we gonna keep the F? Like the red and green F is always going to be that, it's not red.
That's our,
It's not gonna be red.
It's not gonna be this.
Right.
It's going to always be.
And what they do with the dragon, as long as it looks like the dragon, is up to them.
we will have an
Right.
official
You know what I
branding,
mean?
this is what we support in the Fulton City School District, period, package.
Right.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, all right, let's stay on.
We have a set of, this is our set.
Yep.
All right, I will speak to, and I will let you know on a Friday update.
Okay.
All right, let's rally troops.
Budget update.
It's gonna be almost impossible to engage you in a budget conversation after the mascot logo, but I'll give it a shot. So, the governor released the figures for foundation aid and so on and so forth for next year. And so I'll just kind of give you the information we have. I am apprehensive to characterize how that will impact us, but just want to give you a sense of where we are. And we're going to have a budget workshop. We're going to talk about that towards the end here, and I'll fill you in a little bit more then. So our foundation aid, which is the most critical factor of our aid, increased by about 4%, just a little bit over that, which for us in hard figures is about an increase of $1.7 million. That's about what we anticipated, not what we hoped for. Best to characterize that for you where we are now. But
and significantly less than the last 2 years of balancing. I think that's important to.
It is, and when you take factors like inflation rate and the actual cost of educating children, right now that doesn't quite meet where we would be. But again, I don't want to get too far into characterizing that. We can talk about that moving forward, and we'll share a bit more information with you regarding the budget as we move along. The goal for our team is to not just provide you with next year's budget, obviously we have to do, but we want to provide a bit more view of what it's going to look like 2 or 3 years down the road based on our current projections and using what we anticipate moving forward in terms of aid. So we'll do that for you, and again, we're looking forward to the workshop to share what we have. Thank you.
Just a couple of announcements. The Title I Family Engagement, the Screen Entries Under the Influence is tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
Here?
Yes, right here.
At the Fulton Junior High School Library, right here where we're seated. So if you're interested in that, it should be a great movie. The last one was, and we coupled that last time with a discussion with kids and families, so it was a really great evening. District Coherence Council is scheduled for January 29th, next Monday, here in this room, 4 p.m. And then the budget workshop discussion. So I know that Lobby Day happens to be in Albany on the 7th, and I know some discussion, a couple of board members have expressed interest in going to that. And it starts very early in the morning, so they'd be going on the 6th. So I know we wanted some discussion about, do we still want to do the budget workshop? I do not have the answer. I was asked about, could it be done virtually or not? I don't have the answer. I need to check with our attorneys on that. But there was some discussion about some alternative dates. So I don't know, was it the 13th you were talking about?
We proposed to hold it before the board meeting on the 13th, starting at 5 o'clock, but that's just something we threw out there as a way of not adding an additional day, but
I like that idea.
it's an option.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm done with work. I mean, are you guys able to be here early on the 13th?
Unless, of course, we can get the 6th either way.
Yeah, or we can figure out if the 6th can be done.
Right. What time are you talking? Like
5 p.m. So it would give us an hour and a half before the board meeting that evening.
I'll order some great food.
No, I cannot. I cannot. I'm very sorry. I wouldn't be able to be until like 5:30 or 5:45. So find out what,
So we will call tomorrow, Ms. Perry. We need to check just with our attorney, just legalities about workshops and things like, and retreats, things like that.
So if the virtual works for people who can't physically be here for the 6th, would that be what we go with?
Yes.
If we can, in other words, Tim? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying,
Yeah,
if, like, because some people might be at the lobby day, so if we can allow them to come in virtually, like that's approved by the lawyers, will we still have it that day, the 6th?
Yeah,
Or
I don't
are there
see
other
why not,
factors?
right? Because that day did work for everyone originally.
We'll get that answer in the morning, and we'll get that sent out as soon as we get the answer. We should be able to get that tomorrow morning.
Is it a budget, I'm sorry, is it a retreat? Or is it?
I've
because
called
if
it a
it's a-
budget workshop in the past,
Okay, I just wrote down retreat for some reason.
because I said I think both.
Well, I just didn't know if the legal.
I have to find out, there may be one that can be done virtually and one that can't. That's why I need to
Right.
find out.
We've kind of been using them interchangeably, I guess.
Yeah.
No, well, retreat is budget workshop. A workshop is publicly accessible.
Right.
And a retreat is
Private.
internal.
so basically, what it would be, it would still be held
And there's gonna be
in person,
discussion,
but it would be,
especially-
can we bring those members in who are not, because we're not voting on
Right, and
anything.
the issue is
Right.
that as we're talking about budget parameters and things like that, we have to really take into consideration, not knowing what that budget gap is as of yet between revenues and expenditures, or anticipated expenditures. There could be discussion about more longitudinal, larger types of things that we need to look at that really could impact, personnel or other kinds of things, and that's not the kind of, at this point, we wouldn't be ready to have that conversation publicly.
Right.
So that would be more of an executive session type of conversation. So it might be that we go, we call a meeting, we move into an executive session to have that, because it could involve a discussion about impacts on many levels of the organization, depending on where we're at when we work through the final numbers.
So get back to us on that tomorrow, and we will make that one.
Yeah, we'll let you know tomorrow.
So Mr. Crandall will be back on for
So
the
we'll get the
6th.
guidance from our attorneys and law.
Okay,
Act accordingly.
sounds good.
And that's the inclusion of the superintendent's report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caldino. All right, we're going to move on to our finance section, action 4.01. Can I get somebody to move that, please?
Move it. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 4.02, accept donation from Compass Credit Union.
Move it. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. We thank you very much to the Compass Credit Union for their very generous donation. Action 4.03, accept donation from the United Steelworkers for Life Skills.
Move it. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Thank you, United Steelworkers, for your donation. Action 4.04, accept anonymous donation.
Move it. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Thank you to our anonymous donor. Action 4.05, approve extra classroom activity funds or corrective action plan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 4.06, approve participation in cooperative energy services for electricity.
Move it. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 4.07, approve participation in cooperative energy services for natural gas.
Move it. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 4.08, disposal of surplus property.
Move it.
I have some questions about the reading of these books.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we table it until we can discuss it further. We were talking about removing, I was looking at the list, we're talking about removing some books, yet some of the things that the new curriculum, one of them was poetry, she mentioned Maya Angelou, one of the books was removing a book from Maya Angelou. So why are we removing books if we're going to be having a curriculum where we can include that author? So I'd like to table that discussion.
Do you have a list of certain books that you have some questions about, Mr. DeTomorrow?
I wrote down.
Just so we can.
Yeah, just some quick notes.
If you have that, we can use that.
So I know that he had mentioned earlier there were some books that were previously just bought in like 2002 and 2003.
No, 2023.
2023.
Yeah, I saw one from 2024.
Let's see.
Or 2023.
Okay, here's an example. The junior high, we want to remove a book about Thomas Jefferson, remove a book about Anne Frank, yet I see we got something up here about the Holocaust. We want to remove a book about Helen Keller, RFK, the Civil War. We mentioned something about war and media, I think, with the new curriculum. Remove a book by Charles Darwin, The Boston Massacre, The Grapes of Wrath, The Old Man and the Sea. Why are we removing these from junior high reading? So if we're removing them, what are we replacing them with? Lanigan. I saw two that were purchased in 2023. They appear to be, I'm going to say, of Hispanic. I couldn't pronounce the words. I'd have to bring up the list. But two of them ended up being removed in 2023. If that is Hispanic, you know, we want to be, we want to provide books for multicultural. So why are we removing those from Lanigan?
And the fact that it was just previously purchased.
Just previously purchased, yeah. Another one was the finger alphabet, which was about sign language from Lanigan. I think that's very important for young. Another one was How Our Body Works. Again, another, I think, is an important book
So maybe we could just
grade school.
get an idea of, is there
It's a
something
criterion
wrong with
that
these
they
books?
So wait,
Just a
can I
few
just jump in?
that I mentioned.
So I actually had a question, and I had reached out to one of our librarians because I had similar questions as well. It's ironic that we're discussing this, and I had some similar questions. And from what I understand, even though a book might be, we purchased it in 2023 or 2024, it could have been damaged. There's water damage. You know, so the ones that she's pulling are either ones that aren't circulating and that are getting placed with books that are actually, kids are actually picking up and
I
reading.
don't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I got a list of books that we're weeding out.
Yes.
Doesn't tell me anything else.
So the process, from what I understand and what, because I was concerned about it too, is the books are damaged, they're not circulating, and we've replaced them with more books that kids are actually into when reading, because at the end of the day, getting those books in those students' hands to get them what they're actually reading, they might not be reading about Thomas Jefferson, but they might be reading the new graphic novel or, you know, whatever it is. And even though we're making these syllabuses and things like that for the high school, that one book that she pulled for whatever reason here from Maya Angelou might not.
To the high school.
I mean, it could get moved to the high school, but it might, teachers don't even have the syllabus
That's why I
yet.
said I need more information.
Right.
I gotta know more about
Yeah.
it. I'm not gonna inadvertently pull books, you know, so. And if it's because they haven't been signed out, then give me proof when the last time the book was signed out. You gotta have a card, right?
Yeah, and so, and a lot of other information that I had talked to her and researched about is like, there's been books that come out that have more accurate information and things like that, they've replaced these books with.
Right, but
Because
again, there's nothing to tell me that.
Right.
So the
So
question
that's why I
is,
said, what are we replacing them with?
could we table 4.08 until we get further information from Mr. Paulino, who will ask why some of these books have been,
We can get some clarification.
okay?
Do we have to move it to table?
Just move to table, yes.
So would somebody like to move that?
I don't think.
Second.
Okay,
Say the overtime.
so we're going to.
It's Tim
Move
It
to
was
table
Nick,
it.
Nick, and then Tim.
and Tim.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. Okay. Action 4.09, approve amendment on construction management services contract.
Move it.
Second?
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. Action 5.01, approve committee on special education.
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. I just want to bring to your attention that the first reading for several policies have been added to our agenda, so if you guys can make sure to read through those. Does anybody have any questions at this point, if you have already read through them? I know that the workplace violence prevention is new and was added on there, and there's some other new pieces that were, policies that were added in there as well. So lots of changes on a couple of policies, so just make sure you guys look through those. Those will be on the agenda for next meeting.
And some of these, just because I was on policy meeting, were just the changing of the wording so it fit the new word chart, so like the name fit the right position.
Thank you, Tim, for that. Moving on to our personnel, I'm going to batch some, but not others. So, may I ask my colleagues to batch 7.01 to 7.13. Let me just let Tim know that one of our board members will need to abstain from one of the positions. That's why we're moving to all personnel. Do you want me to read through what 7.01 to 13 is?
I was good with all of them, so
Okay.
I'll just move to, I'll move it to go.
Move it to go. So for the 7.01 to 7.13, we have Tim, and can I get someone to second?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0.
That didn't include the one, no, okay, or, no, okay.
Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. For 7.14, was that student helpers? Can I have somebody move that, please?
Move it.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
Passes 5-0-1. Batch 715 through 721.
Move it.
Second?
No, I have a question about 7.17.
Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about, is it 721?
No, 7.17.
7.17. 7.17 is the athletic coach, Mr. Papani. This might be a question for you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just wondering why we have a strength and conditioning coach when the coaches should be doing that for their teams anyway.
I don't know if
Am I
I
right?
can answer that question. We keep, the strength and conditioning coach also keeps the weight room open after school. So we approved one a few months ago for the first winter session, that was Craig Halliday. And now we're approving the second one for this session, the second winter session. Kind of like we do with the modified season, it's winter 1 and winter 2. So they also keep the gym open and they're supervising, the main supervisor in the gym when not just athletes from teams come in, but when any kid comes in to use the gym after school.
What
That kind
time?
of along the course that Mr. Murray spoke about earlier as well. That kind of is generated out of that as well.
Well, the one that Mr. that course generated?
Yes,
The fitness one.
Yeah, the fitness course.
And what out, like, I guess, because I have a similar concern about it too, is, to me, if, you know, we have students in there, their coaches, you know, would be in there with them, or, you know, what are the hours, I mean.
Well, from my best recollection was at the high school, I believe it was right
6
after
a.m.,
school
I believe.
until about 5.
Right, and I believe they're opening at 6 a.m. because I was talking to this, a swim parent the other night. They start at 6 a.m. and Mr. Mosky is there running a lifting program.
And we also have to remember that not all of our students are athletes that utilize.
Right, they're not, they might not be part of a team. He's there as the general supervisor of that area during those time periods.
And if he's coaching, is he training them in strengthening and weightlifting and things like that? I mean.
He's not coaching during this session.
No, I think that's just the
it's
name,
called-
that's just the title, because we use that at Oswego too for our like.
You need
basis.
somebody
Essentially,
who's
they're a
in there
monitor.
who
An adult.
understand that, well, they need to understand the machines, they have to understand form and technique. And I know that, my daughter went in and I said, you are absolutely not to deadlift, to squat, to do any of that. She was like, well, Mr. Halliday's in there. So they watch and they make sure and they teach them their correct form, they teach about sets and reps and the correct weight that they
So
should use.
they're not assigned to one team.
They are not
They're there
assigned to one
educate
team, it's for
any student
anybody
that's
to come
there.
in to use the weight room.
And correct me if I'm wrong, coaches can still go in with their
Yeah.
athletes.
They are still in there.
What are the hours that this person's in there?
It's a 6 to 7:30.
I can put those in the Friday update for you. I know they're working, I know he's there first thing in the mornings. I was talking to, I know that because I have a parent and I discussed it, because I think it's terrific that they're doing that. And
I think
it's
it's
also
just
running
like
it after
coaches
school
say.
hours
After school.
as well.
Kids will go in and they'll take the 4:15 bus home.
That's right.
So, and he's in there quite a lot.
I asked about this, and it's basically like a modified coaching stipend. So, you're coaching a junior high sport, and it's basically after school until 5 o'clock. And that is the same amount as the strength and conditioning coach will receive. So it's basically the same.
It's basically winter
It's the
session
same,
1
it's
or
the
2,
same
it's the same
exact thing,
stipend.
except he does not have a team. He has just random students coming in.
In my understanding, it's very steady.
Yes.
Kids participate. You're welcome to see it sometime, or we can check it out.
I'd like to.
Sure.
Any questions?
I mean, I guess we're good. So does the sessions, do they do fall, winter, and spring?
Fall semester, spring semester.
Well, this is winter.
It's broken, this
Is he broken in 3 pieces?
winter 1 and winter 2, just like there
Okay.
is, there's
Oh, I'm sorry.
in sports like boys basketball.
What is it costing us?
Right.
They split a stipend, so.
But will there be another one in the spring? Are we going
Yes.
again?
Yeah.
So it's costing us.
Just like if they were coaching 3 sports, they'd get paid 3 different.
It's like probably like 8
Like for
weeks.
a modified coach position, what we would, if we were to put a modified coach in there, if they just decided to split and do winter 1, winter 2, they would just split the stipend.
Because that's how we divide up the sports in the modified, right?
Yep.
It's winter, winter.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we good? All right, so let me go back and just ask for 715 to 721.
I'll
Tim
move it again, yeah?
and Fallon. All those, sorry.
Tim.
Say again? Tim and Fallon. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0.
Can I elaborate on it? The hours are Monday through Friday, 3 to 5, and there are 25 to 30 kids in there each day. The before school is a bonus. He does that just to be in there to help kids.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I just call him out. Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. All right, we're going to move on now. We do have an executive session tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Should be
I
brief,
mean, I'm
I
not
hope.
there yet, but I just wanted to make sure, okay.
Yep.
8.01, board forum, we'll start with Harper.
Thank you everyone for your presentations tonight. They were very good. I'm super excited about all these English courses. Like I know it was a big topic of discussion, but after taking so many of like the social studies courses. I feel like a lot of what the English courses offer, like propaganda, like you mentioned, has been taught in social studies for us. Crazy, but being able to understand it better in English, I feel like that was really important. Obviously, I'm missing out on it, which I'm a little bummed about. That's okay, I'm excited for everybody else. I'm really happy about the logo and mascot. It's been a huge thing for us. I'm really happy that we're making more progress with it. Also, thank you for putting me to be a lifeguard. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And that'll be all for me.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Just piggybacking off what Harper said, the new courses offering in English, it's really amazing that we're able to offer that, and then hopefully piggyback that into college courses as well. That's really great. And I got thinking after Ms. DuPoint was up here talking about the lens of learning, once those teachers get those syllabuses and things are working, not only will that be completely open to our students and our parents, but to our community with that amazing blended learning program that we really have. So it's always an option for, as those courses continue and grow and change, that we have everything accessible right there to do a deep dive into what that is. The changes in the mascot are really incredible, and I just wanted to thank Mr. DeJourn for all of his hard work and dedication. And the
wasn't any work on my part.
It was, to make sure that those, students were getting heard. So thank you so much, and that's it.
Ms. Nato?
There was so much information tonight. I'm happy we are moving forward like usual. We have teachers working tirelessly, and I'm excited for the new gym and the bleachers. Thank you everybody for your presentations, and let's keep on going. That's all I have.
Ms. Papalardo?
I'm not going to talk about anything that we talked about right now, but I do just want to bring something up to you guys, some feedback that I heard regarding the lockout holds in place that we had earlier this month. And I think that, our students, I know that our students are texting parents, mine including, saying, hey, we're in a hold in place, we're in a lockdown, we're in a lockout, whatever it is. And I just don't think that we're getting information to the parents soon enough, and people are not happy about it. And some of the suggestions that came through were maybe to have, even if it's a generic text message, go out before we really follow up saying, hey, the high school's on a lock, whatever it is, we are investigating a situation outside of the school, we will keep you notified, something along those lines, because obviously I heard about it from Olivia, and then we heard about it as the board, but then there was still kind of a lag in time where parents didn't hear about it, and I think that they know what's going on because their students are telling them, but they want to hear it from the district, and I don't know what we have to follow in order to do that, but I truly think that if there was something generic that went out and just said, hey, it has been more than I don't know what the policy is, I didn't look at it, it has been more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever is decided upon, here's what's going on, we are working tirelessly with our community, whatever it is. I think that parents would appreciate just having it a little bit sooner than what it came out. And I know it wasn't any significant period of time, but I think that parents just want to know, hey, our kids are safe right now. Like, this is not something that's happening in this, it's not, something happening in school, whatever it may be. So that's all I'm gonna add for today, so.
Figure out how we can do it better. No, absolutely, I'm not, it's one of those things where, obviously it's something we've got to constantly keep working on, and you have to do it fast enough, but accurate enough.
Right, and I know.
So, with the safety of the students as the primary focus, and staff.
Dr. Lacey, maybe this is something we can put forward at our next.
Sure, help
meeting. I mean, we've talked about some of these things a little bit with some of our future things that are coming up, but.
Yeah.
That on the agenda?
Yeah.
Anything else, Mrs. Pepper? Thank you, thank you. Mr. Connors?
I think like Mrs. Mainville said it right, there was a lot of information tonight. There are a lot of people to thank. I think everyone gave a great presentation, and when we asked questions, we got good answers, reasoning, even when we had to go through it a couple times. But I'd like to say that I feel like I really understand what's going on, and that helps us as a board to be able to move forward. So thank you, everybody, and hopefully we keep moving forward and continue this momentum this year.
Mr. DeJoy?
Great presentations. I like the new curriculum that's coming in, but I'd just like an opportunity to look at the syllabus before it's implemented. I will be going to the NISPA Lobby Day, so anyone, be it the board, Mr. Palvino, Mr. Lisi, Mrs. Geithner, Mr. Cabani, anybody who has any input that they'd like me to take and ask the Assemblyman and the Senator, please let me know. Email me a list and I'll ask a question.
You'll deliver, huh?
Well, I can't say I'll deliver, but anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Yes, there was quite a bit of information this evening. I'm always thankful to hear everything that you guys present to us. I'm looking forward to looking at the MTSS once it's up and running. And I ask, is it easy access? Because sometimes we have a lot of information on our website, and I feel like Fulton has one of the easier websites to access through. But yeah, sometimes when I'm looking, so it's front and center. I'm excited about that. I wanted to also bring up to my colleagues, because this is something we have to start thinking about. I probably don't remember where I put the note. But by March 19th, we are going to need to, I did lose my note. I have a full letter here. We are going to need to think about who we want to appoint, or if there is someone on our board who would like to sit on the city BOCES committee. That ends in June, but we have to have that put to out to city BOCES for our recommendation. I believe Fulton, Hannibal, and is it Oswego?
No.
Not Oswego. Pulaski, maybe? Maybe Pulaski. There's one other district that their terms are up, so our district is one of them. I will absolutely offer it to somebody who is on my board. It's usually once a month. They do work with the city BOCES. They have their own committees that they do as well. Mr. Cordone has asked that if he could still be part of it, he would definitely do that again. He has been on the city BOCES committee for several terms out there and is willing to do that again for us. But again, I let him know if somebody on my board is interested, I do need to offer that opportunity to you guys first. So take some time to think about that. We will talk about that and revisit that in the next couple of meetings. I will send you out the letter that I received from Mrs. Perry through City BOCES. We have to have this out because they do their vote. Remember what day they do their vote?
We need to do ours like the second meeting in February. Oh. So that's when we vote on it.
We vote on ours the second meeting, and they get theirs by by the 19th. So I had that in my hand. I think I left it on my desk.
Do you want me, Brenda, to send a letter out and I can give the dates of what we have to do when?
Yeah, and it's pretty self-explanatory there, so we just, if you could please, yes, that would be great. That way you guys have an opportunity to look at it, we can get that out, and then if nobody is interested or time constraints doesn't make it possible for one of us to do it, we could definitely offer it again to Mr. Cordone, or if there's somebody who has somebody else they want to appoint, but Mr. Cordone is definitely interested. So I just wanted to put that out there so that people know on that one. I'm not going to really go over everything else that my colleagues have said. You guys have pretty much touched base. But I do want to say, Mrs. Geithner, congratulations on your retirement. We will certainly miss you. I mean, you're stuck with us until July, so we will still pick your brain and ask many questions and, maybe give you a headache once in a while. But your hard work here in the district has not gone unnoticed, and you will be missed. So
I will
Thank
certainly
you for
miss it.
all of your work. Let's see. Second public forum, I do think that everybody has left, so we will move on to moving into executive session. It is 9:20, and I have somebody move that.
Move it.
Second.
Was that Jen?
Yeah. Jen can have it.
Jen, I heard Jen. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0.
It was really me twice, I was just so excited.
All right, we'll be moving into executive session. Thank you. We're going to come back and adjourn our meeting. Would somebody move action 9.01?
Move it.
Jen?
Second.
Second, yes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstaining, passes 5-0-0. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.